Over the next few videos, I'm going to help you understand how people work, what motivates them, how to take that information and then turn around and use it. This is the foundation. You understand how people work. All right. So the first step in understanding people and preparing yourself as a copywriter to help people is you have to pick who you're reaching out to and who you're helping in the first place. We're going to be talking about target markets and what's called an avatar. Now, these are the people you're going to be writing to. I have a saying that I like to repeat, and it's whoever impacts the reader at the deepest level wins. Of course, that's me. I came up with that saying, but it's true. In the market out there in the world, whoever can impact, whoever can connect or persuade a person the deepest out of anyone in the world, that's the person who wins their trust, who wins their business, who they'll pay for their products and services. So specificity gives you power. If you try and help everyone or sell a product to everyone in the entire world, you'll end up helping no one. But if you're able to focus your efforts and communication on a defined group of people, you can impact them significantly on a significantly higher level, right? Now, when you're sitting down to figure this out, your target market, that's the defined group of people who will get the most out of your product or service. If you focus on them and their specific problems, their dreams and roadblocks, you can communicate in a way that allows you to impact them on a deeper level than anyone else in the market, right? So when you're sitting down to write copy for a specific product, the first step is to sit down and ask yourself, who's the ideal target market for this product? Who is going to be the person who's going to get the most out of this product or service? Once you've got that figured out, then you're going to use the following trick to make sure you write in a way that resonates deeply with them. And you do that by creating what's called an avatar. Now, an avatar is a single person that embodies the characteristics of your target market. They're the person you picture in your mind, the single person you picture in your mind as you write. And I like to imagine that they're like sitting in front of me and I'm speaking only and directly to them through the words that I'm writing. So for example, let's run through this process. Let's say that the target market for the copywriting campus is 19 to 25-year-old men who are hungry to get wealthy and live free from the matrix. That's a really basic level. I'd get a little more to define my target market, but let's say that's the target market, right? Let's say. Now, if I want to create an avatar to help me imagine this target market, here's what that might look like in this example. So we'd create someone, I'd call him Steve. I'd say Steve is a 20-year-old young man living in Dallas, Texas. He's set to go back to college later this year, but he's dreading it. Right now, he lives with his parents, binge watches tape videos, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd go into more and more detail, right? You could even pick a picture to help you picture this person, right? Like a literal picture. I went and found this on pexels.com. It's just some website where you can get stock imagery. And this is who I might imagine in my mind when I think of Steve, right? So now if I were to sit down and write copy to persuade people to join the copywriting campus, or if I was, let's say, putting together a set of slides for new copywriting students, I could imagine Steve and address all of my words to him and everything that I say as if he's sitting across from me right now and I was talking with him. Now, what that does is that gives my writing a personal edge. When I can imagine a specific person, it's easier for me to communicate in a way that feels natural and connects with that kind of person on a deeper level, right? So it resonates well with Steve. If someone comes along that's the exact carbon copy of my avatar, resonates perfect with him. Plus, almost everyone else inside that kind of larger target market, it also resonates really closely with them because Steve is an embodiment of those people, right? The target market is the kind of the wider group of people that is a good fit for your product. And Steve, or your avatar, is the one specific version of the embodiment of that. It's a single instance. It's one person. He may or may not be real, but he's a tool I use to think clearly about him and his life. And that specificity gives me power. It gives my brain enough reality to latch onto that it can come up with the rest of the information I need to know. So what do you need to include when you're creating an avatar? You need to understand, at a bare minimum, you need the name, age, and a face is helpful, right? That level of detail makes it easier for you to imagine them as a real person, individual person. It's really helpful. And then you can kind of ask questions. Well, how would Steve think about this? Or what would Steve say that? And it's funny, you can ask your brain questions and your brain can give you answers, but it's a lot easier when you have a name, their age, and their face, right? And then you're also going to want their background and a mini life history. You don't need to go crazy overboard. You don't need every single thing that's ever happened in their entire life. I don't need to know what January 23rd was like when they were in third grade. You don't need to know that, right? But you need to understand the general context of their life, their previous experiences, what has happened to them up to now. You don't have to be terribly detailed, but you need to have a general feel for what that's like. The other thing that's really helpful is if you can come up with a day in the life. If you can get a rough idea or an image or a movie in your brain of what like a day in that life of that avatar is like. He wakes up here, he gets up, he moves around, he does this, he does that, goes here, he dreads looking at that, he's excited for this, he sits there, he watches this video. If you can create a rough day in the life, that gives you a lot of rich context to draw from when you're working with him to help him change. The other thing you need to realize, you need to pay attention to, is you need to see if you can identify what are his values. Like, what do they believe in is most important? What do they believe in? What do they believe is most important? What do they despise? It's extremely important. Their value system is going to be informative when you're speaking to them. You need to understand it so you don't violate it when you speak with them. And instead you can go, either you can shift the things to be shifted, or at the very least you can go with the current of his current value system and direct him using that information. So it's important you understand their values, right? The other thing you need to understand is what outside forces are acting on his life. So most people have, in many cases, mistaken belief that outside forces control their lives, right? School, parents, other family members, religion, blah, blah, blah. All these other things control or influence their life. Now, you need to understand if your avatar has placed undue power on these outside sources, because that's going to be important. You can either use them as a source of blame, or as something, it's a factor you're going to need to adjust. If they really, really value the opinion of their parents, you might be able to change the way that their parents perceive them and use that as an indicator or a sort of a carrot that you dangle in front of them. Hey, do this and your parents will be so proud. Rough example, but you need to understand the outside forces. That's an important part of like the terrain of that person, right? So these are 5 things. There's a lot more you can include. But it's just sort of a general idea, some things you want to look for when you're creating an avatar. Now, normally, if you're sitting down to do this for an established product, you'll be looking at the person's website, their social media, their web page, the product page for the product you're trying to help them with. And usually you can get enough information from a product page. You can tell kind of by the context clues who they're talking to, kind of, you can get most of the information for who their target market is at least, right? And then kind of based on that, those context clues, and even if you have to make your best guess about some of those things, you can create an avatar from that. And again, you might have to kind of guess what their values are, or maybe what a day in their life is like. You're gonna have to imagine some of this, but the power comes from getting specific here. If you get specific and you make this avatar into a real fleshed out person in your brain, it gives you an ability to write on a deeper, more personal level. So you're gonna get what information you can from your research, and then you have to make your best guess about the rest. But it's less about being right and more about being specific and being real in your own brain. So if you're working with an established client, instead of like completely inventing the avatar, just like pulling them out of thin air, you're going to instead sit down with your client and identify their most loyal, high-paying customers. And basically, you're just going to clone them. They will become your avatar. So when you sit down to write, you'll just think, oh, this guy's a really great client. Tim has experienced all these benefits. I'm going to write to Tim, but I'm going to write to Tim basically the version of Tim that existed before he started using this product or service. So that's the avatar you can even create. Having an existing client makes it a lot easier to sort of supercharge or speed up this process. So defining the target market, figuring out who are the ideal customers for this product, who is going to get the most benefit out of this, who's going to pay the most, who's going to be the best ideal customer for this product. That's step number 1. It's extremely important. And then taking that and synthesizing out and creating one single avatar that you can use in your brain, a specific single embodiment of that target market to give your brain the specificity it needs. If you do that, it will allow you to focus on them, and it will give your writing the power of specificity and allow you to impact them on a deeper level and win in a marketplace. This is one of the things that will give you, this is one of the things that separates good copywriters from bad copywriters. Good copywriters and excellent world-class copywriters are all really good at defining and speaking to one specific avatar when they write. It gives them an edge over the competition. It gives them an ability to influence people on a deeper level. This is an extremely important step when you're setting out to decide, to help someone sell a product or to just help people in general. You need to first define who you're going to help, and that's how you do it with this target market and the avatar. All right, this is a fun one. So we've talked about picking a single individual to picture in your mind as the person that you are helping, that you're there to help, as your avatar, and that perfect embodiment of your target market. Now we're going to talk about human motivators. how you can use them to propel someone to take action. Now, this is a powerful lesson. I've consumed a lot of marketing materials where when they teach this type of stuff, they make people like swear or promise that they'll never use this for evil, because when you understand how humans work, what motivates them to change, unless you're a good person, you can use it for evil. And I highly recommend you use it for good, for helping people to change in positive directions. You will be rewarded plenty by doing so. So there's no need to go sinister. Just but keep in mind, these are potent ideas that I'm about to share with you. They're powerful. You need to be very conscious about how you use them. And I highly recommend you only use them for good, both for yourself and for others. Now, something to pay attention with, as I teach this, these ideas also apply to yourself. So we're talking right now about how to help other people make positive changes in their life and move towards something good, and in the process purchase a product, right, that hopefully is a good product that actually will help them achieve this dream state. Now, you can also consume this material through the lens of your own life, right? So as you're seeking to create if you're seeking to create change in your own life, to step into a dream outcome, a different life, what you're going to learn here will help you motivate yourself, will help you direct your actions. This is a very powerful lens. So as we go through this, keep those things in mind. This is a powerful lesson. This will be helpful for you guys. So with that, let's dive in. So humans are only compelled to take action for two main reasons. There's only two things. One, they're either running away from pain, or two, they are running towards pleasure. Now, it's our job as copywriters to understand both and to combine them so we can propel people forward toward a better life. I like this diagram. The face was kind of an ornery guy, so I switched it for a happy little emoji. But essentially, you're the copywriter, right? And you are helping these people, which is like the horse, right? You're helping them and propelling them forward by helping them run away from pain, and you are also helping them run towards pleasure, right? And this is how you motivate people to move the fastest in their life, right? Some people respond better to one side versus the other. Some people respond better to pain. Other people respond better to a positive thing to move forward to in the future. But generally, it's a combination of both that will help you help others change and make changes in their lives. So let's talk about both in greater detail. So the first one, running toward pleasure. Now, let's go back to the first one, which is actually running away from pain. Now, for most humans, this is the most powerful motivator. People are mostly afraid of loss. They are worried about risk reversal. They are worried about bad things happening to them. They're worried about, and they are motivated by pain and frustrating things in their life. It's a survival mechanism, right? It's how humans have evolved to stay alive. We run away from pain. Ooh, that hurts. That's fire. I'm not going to touch that again. Oh, a tiger is chasing me and he's going to eat me. That's a little more important than my self-fulfillment, right? Running away from pain is a powerful motivator. Tony Robbins, he was a famous guy, helped a lot of people change their lives. He had a statement, this I think is really true, and he said that change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, right? So as a copywriter, you need to understand the things that they're currently going through, the pain that is currently in their life, and in some ways, you're going to help them amplify that or help them understand it a little bit better. And you're also going to help them understand that the pain of change is a little less than they think it is, right? But in order to do that, you have to understand that you have to understand the pain and frustration they're currently going through, right? I call this their current state. So right now in their life, this person, and you are too, right? You're in a situation, you're in a current state, and there are things that are good, things that are bad. There are things that are painful and frustrating, right? You need to understand the pain and frustration that those people are currently experiencing in their life so that you can agitate and amplify that to then propel them to leave their current state and move towards a dream state. So some things you can ask yourself is, what is painful or frustrating in the current life of my avatar? What annoys them? What do they fear? What do they lie awake at night worrying about? How do others negatively perceive them now? You want to think about these agitators that exist in their life, the things that they are dissatisfied with, they are upset with, they hate or despise or are painful for them, things that they're frustrating, things that they don't like dealing with. You want to understand as many of these as possible in the life of your avatar, especially how it relates to whatever problem your product or service solves, right? What are their pains? The better you understand that, the better, right? The better you'll be able to amplify them and propel them forward, right? The other side of the coin is people running toward pleasure. So I refer to this as the dream state. People have an idea of some nice version of the future where their problems don't exist and they can enjoy nicer experiences. Um, for someone to change, you have to, instead of just agitating their current state, you have to also present them with a compelling, hope-filled vision of the future, right? It's not enough just to agitate their pain and tell them to buy something. You have to show them how they can move forward and experience a better life. Now, a lot of people are really, really well acquainted with the pain and frustration in their life. However, not everybody actually can even conceptualize a dream state, right? They have some vague idea, but you are going to want to be able to present a rich and vivid and detailed vision of the future, right? And you're going to have to take control of that vision. It needs to be compelling and relevant to them, but it needs to be vivid and exciting and dynamic, and it's up to you to make it so. Some good questions you can ask to discover what this pleasure is or this dream state is that your avatar might want to move forward to. You could ask yourself and them, if they could wave a magic wand in their life and fix everything, what would their life look like? What would that new life look like? What enjoyable new experiences would they have? How would others perceive them in a positive or different light now that they're this new person living this new life? How would they feel about themselves if they made a change and were able to live like this? You need to ask yourself, what would make that so amazing? Like, why would they even want to move to this wonderful life? And sometimes it's obvious, but it's up to you to understand it and to make it vivid and exciting, right? You can describe the life of a multimillionaire traveling the world and enjoying all the finest things the world has to offer. And you can do it in a really boring way, or you can do it in an exciting and dynamic way. It's all on how you frame it, but it's up to you to look forward, get a detailed, hope-filled, compelling version of the future of a dream state they could step into if they're able to solve these problems. And it's up to you to understand that. That's the pleasure that they're moving towards. So the more vivid and dynamic you can be in understanding their pain and pleasure, the more powerful you can compel them to act, right? This is key. Most people have found ways to dull down the pain in their life, and they've found ways to dull down the vision of the future because they want to stay comfortable, right? Again, the pain of change is difficult, and so sometimes they will actually diminish the pain of their current situation in order to keep them from having to act. You see this all the time, right? You see these skinny guys that make fun of people who are physically strong and call them stupid and stuff like that, because it's a lot easier to just flip it in their mind and call someone stupid than to put in the hard work to earn something, right? So your prospects will have done this in many, many ways for the pain that they're experiencing. They will find ways to diminish it or to diminish the allure of a dream state. So the more vivid you can describe the dream state and the pain, the better you'll be able to spark those emotions, those motivating emotions inside of the reader. Bonus points, this gets a lot easier if you make the answers sensory. So those questions I asked about, the dream state or the current frustration, if you can put them in terms of sensory information, so visual, auditory, tactile, olfactory, gustatory, et cetera, right? Those 5 main senses. If you can encode the information and the vision of that dream state inside of those 5 senses, you will make it more vivid, more exciting, and more dynamic just by default. So bonus points, a little thing to think about. So there's another point to keep in mind. The higher the importance of the pain and pleasure that you are talking about, the more motivating they are, right? So many of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. He was some old psychologist, came with this pyramid. It's been pretty helpful for me in helping elevate the level of conversation, the level of pain and pleasure that I motivate my readers with, right? So the base, you have physiological needs, air, water, food, shelter, stuff like that, right? Then you have safety, then love and belonging, then esteem and self-actualization. Status is like a version of esteem, right? It's a pretty high thing up there, right? So if you sit and talk about the tangible, physical, whatever benefits of a product or some dream life, you can talk about a really boring way down the bottom, and it's not going to be that motivating. But if you can frame it in terms of status and love and acceptance and self-actualization and being the best version of themselves possible, typically that's more motivating, right? So the higher you can, and you can't always just come in swinging with self-actualization. You usually have to kind of notch up step by step and kind of take them up this hierarchy. But the higher up this hierarchy you can connect that change you want to make, the more motivating it is, right? People act out of, like, this becomes significantly more alluring if you can somehow tie product or services that you're offering or the change that you're inspiring them, if you can connect it to these higher order hierarchy of needs, it becomes more impactful, more compelling. So again, the higher up you can elevate the focus, the greater you can amplify their desire to change. So we've talked about kind of those two main motivators, how to amplify them, how to understand them, how to learn about them in the terms of your avatar. Now that you've got your reader all ready to take action, we've got the horse all revved up. You've amplified the pain, you understand his pain, you understand the dream state that he's going towards. The next question is, how do you then direct them to solve their problem? So you've got them all ready to go. Where do you point that horse? Where do you point that reader now? And how do you help them understand how to move forward, right? And that's something I'll be talking about in the next video. But right now, you understand the two main human motivators and how they connect to getting people to change. All right, so we've talked about how to motivate people. We're now going to talk about the path to change. So once you've got them motivated, what do you do with them, right? So once you have someone chomping at the bit to change, right? And I remember this picture from the previous video. You've got them moving towards a dream state. You've got them running away from pain on the back end. Where do you direct them? Where do they go after that? Where do you direct the horse? What is the track that you need to have them run on to get what you want? And part of that includes, how do you get them to buy your product? That's part of the process, right? So consider this. Almost everyone in this world, you included, know exactly what your dream life would look like, or at least have some idea, right? The fun things, that there's a better life out there for you. So the question is, if people know that, why don't they just step into that dream life today, right? Why don't you just step into living the life that you want? Obviously, it's not just a lack of motivation. It's not a lack of pain in your current life or desire for the dream life. Most of the time, there are roadblocks that are keeping people from moving into their dream state, right? Now, I've created some really, really high quality diagrams here to help you understand this concept. But you have here this little sad emoji guy in his current state. It's all rainy and sad, and he wants to move to his dream state. Now, most people, in this example, this is just a clear path. You just walk forward. So most people try and move towards their dream state, but they encounter roadblocks. They encounter things that stop them from reaching their dream state, and they don't know how to get around. They don't know how to get over. They don't know how to get to that dream state, and they're stuck. Now, the thing is, your avatar might not even know about or even understand the roadblock that's limiting them. They just know they can't, for some reason, make this change happen in their life. And if you can help them understand that obstacle, that roadblock, better than they currently do, they'll love you forever. This is one of the best ways to create and generate trust between you and another person, is if you can help them gain new insights into why their world is the way it is and why they're not getting what they want, and sort of the other side of the coin, how to get what they want, right? So when you're sitting down trying to identify these things, you need to ask yourself, what is keeping my avatar from getting what they want now? Now, you need to ask yourself what mistakes they're making, what things they've tried that haven't worked in the past. And you need to continue to kind of break down and go deeper and deeper in this investigation. Roadblocks have layers. There are reasons within reasons why they aren't getting what they want. But usually there's one key reason. If you can keep going down that path, eventually you'll get to that key reason, the one thing that's stopping them from getting what they want. Yeah, there's a key roadblock. There's always that one thing that if you shift that, everything else, all the other dominoes fall into place and they can get what they want, right? Once you've identified that key roadblock, it's time to uncover the corresponding solution. So it's like a coin. There's one side is the roadblock, the other side is the solution. And the solution is kind of what bridges the gap. It's the information, the insight, the understanding of the world that's going to set them free. It's going to show them exactly how to overcome their current roadblocks and get, walked into their dream state. So solutions can usually be stated in if-then phrases and are connected to that core roadblock. For example, let's say we're helping overweight people lose weight. And the roadblock is they're eating more calories than they burn. They are in a caloric surplus. They don't understand that, or they can't live any different. They don't know how. That's the roadblock that's keeping them from losing weight. So in that case, the solution might be, it's a simple law of nature. If you eat less calories than you burn, then you will lose weight. That's the key. That's the piece of information, the principle they need to follow to overcome their current limitations and step into their dream state, right? That's a pretty simplistic example, but that's a way to understand it. That's a way to think about it. This is key, right? So we've talked about what the solution is. Theoretically, at this point, if you reveal all these things to the reader, they now theoretically should know what they need to do to get what they want, right? So where does a product fit in? We just help them for free? What do we do next? You need to understand that the product is the vehicle that helps the avatar take advantage of that solution, of that law of nature, right? So it's the vehicle that helps them get over that bridge and into their dream state the quickest and the easiest, right? The product makes it faster, safer, and easier and more fun to overcome the roadblock and make it to the dream state than if they did it by themselves, right? It's what helps them get there faster, more efficiently, and with less risk, right? The product isn't the solution. It's the thing that helps them use that key law of nature to get what they want, right? Now, these are important concepts. Once you can identify how all these things daisy chain together and connect, you can reshape people's brains and show them how the world really works. It's kind of like you're red pilling them. Once you can show them, their current state, the true nature of their roadblock, the solution, once you can show them that, it's kind of like you give them the red pill. You've opened their eyes to how the world truly is, right? And then you frame the product as the best vehicle and the fastest way to then take advantage of that new principle and get the thing that they want. If you can understand these concepts, you will be able to help. Like, most business owners don't even understand how these concepts tie together for their own products and solutions. They don't understand their avatars even. Just understanding this gives you an amazing way to start bringing value to clients that you work with. If you understand these things correctly, you will be able to write very persuasively. Usually when you run into limitations when you're sitting there trying to write, it's because you don't answer these questions. You don't understand the answer to these questions for the specific product or service or avatar. You need to always make sure that you get clarity about how these ideas connect together. You understand what their current situation is like, what their dream state is like. You understand what their roadblock is, the key thing that's keeping them from getting what they want, what that solution is, and how the product helps them take advantage of that solution. If you can do that, if you can understand these things, you will be able to direct a motivated reader to take action and buy the product and achieve their dream state. You can help people make massive changes in their life and pay tens of thousands of dollars for products that will help them get massive value in their life, and you'll be rewarded well. If you fail to understand these principles, it will be much more difficult for you to write really persuasively and to help people make meaningful change. These are superpowers. If you can also take this information and turn around and look at your own life, look at your own current limitations, your own roadblocks, and find the key solution, the key law of nature that you can use to take advantage and sort of bridge that gap and step into your dream state more quickly, more efficiently. And once you can do it for yourself, you can do it for other people. This is wildly powerful concepts. Use it to help people make change, and you'll be rewarded very well for it by clients and the universe. All right. This video, we're going to talk about what a concept that I call Business 101. I call it that because this is the foundational principle upon which all business is based, right? All business, all commerce, and really any interaction between any human being on the planet is based on this principle. We're gonna go over why people will give you their hard-earned money, right? Let's dive right in. So you have to understand, you don't make money. People don't make money. The governments make money, the Rothschilds, whoever, the Federal Reserve, whoever's in charge of the matrix makes the money. They print the money, they decide to create money. So you don't make it. You're not going to ever make money as a business owner, as a freelancer, as a copywriter. You don't make it. Someone has to decide to give you that money, right? Someone will give it to you. It's only transfer between people. It's never generated out of thin air. So you have to ask yourself, like, why on earth would anyone want to give someone else their hard-earned money? Why do they just decide to freely give their money to someone else? Now, I just want you to pause and think for a moment about things you purchased in the past, things you purchased recently. Why did you decide to give someone else your money? Stop and think about it. I'm not saying it's wrong to do this. Obviously, we do this all day long, day in and day out. But why did you decide to give someone else your money? You probably worked hard for it. You probably had to work some job somewhere and give up your human time to get this money, and you decided to trade it away for something. Why? Why did you decide to do that? And it all comes down to, you believe that what you were going to get from that value exchange, you believe you were going to get more value out of that deal than the money you gave them. Think about that. You gave them money and you thought you were getting a screaming good deal. I will give them $10 and they will give me back $100 worth of value. This is wonderful. I'll do this all day long, right? Everything in business, everything in life is a value exchange. It's a trade of time, energy, and money for things that you want, right? We should pause and make a note of it. It's not just money, right? People pay in things besides just money. They pay in time, energy, likes, shares, subscribes, any kind of action or any type of value that the customer gives. Like there's a lot of different things that can be besides just money, and they get a lot of different types of value besides just products, right? Like I said, some trades are big. Someone might pay 10, 100, $5 million for a Bugatti, but they get more than $5 million in value back, for example, right? All the way down to deciding to spend 15 seconds watching a tape video clip on TikTok, for example. You're investing 15 seconds and you're getting back a significantly higher amount of value, right? These trades range all the way from tiny to just a little bit of your time and energy to huge, investing decades of your life to serve in some cause, for example, right? It's a very fluid scale, some big, some small. But the key thing is both sides in any of these exchanges feel like they're getting a good deal, right? It's a mutually beneficial trade. When you pay $10 for something at a restaurant, for example, let's say you buy a hamburger. I don't know where you can buy a hamburger for $10 these days, but you buy a hamburger, let's say $20, you're getting more than $20 of value back for yourself, right? And the business, on the other hand, is thinking, oh, cool, the cost of goods and material here was only $15. I made a $5 profit. This is a beneficial trade for me. Both sides are receiving a good deal. It's a mutually beneficial trade, right? That's the key, is both sides. And you have to understand and feel the importance of this principle. This is key, right? Because understanding this idea that the money is not created, it's only traded, it only exchanges hands, and that it has to be a mutually beneficial trade for both people to participate, whether that's time, energy, or money for products or actions or whatever it is. You have to understand that it's a mutually beneficial trade of value. Both sides need to walk away happy, right? The reason this is important is because if you understand this principle, there is no end to the amount of money you can make or you can receive as a result. If you can engineer mutually beneficial trades of value between, your potential customers and yourself, or your clients, their customers, and that business, if you can engineer those mutually beneficial trades by presenting the products in a specific way, or by helping understand the value that they get and communicating in a way, if you can understand this principle, you can engineer these trades in a way that makes it really easy for you to scale up and make a significant amount of money for yourself or for the clients that you're going to work with, right? This is key. This kind of brings up the idea of abundance versus scarcity. And I like to think of it in different terms. It's more about collaboration versus combativeness. You're not taking anything from anybody. You're not, it's not a barbarian raid where you're going to go and use force to take money from people. You're going to show up and instead engineer trades of mutual value. It's a collaboration. You work with the prospect, you work with the reader, you work with whoever you're selling to create a situation where you both get what you want as a result of the trade of value. And that's extremely important. You have to understand this idea of being collaborative versus being combative. You are there to work together with the prospect to help them make good decisions and improve their life. And as a result, they will pay you well for it, right? Again, which is why everything you do, your ability to get paid significant amount of money as a copywriter is depending on the amount of value that you can bring to them. The more value you can bring to their business, the more they will be willing to compensate with you. It's that trade. This is a foundational principle. You have to understand this. Everything else is built on this. Any interaction you have with any human being, if you want it to be productive, it has to be mutually beneficial trade of value. That is absolutely and completely key. All right. So we talked about how all of business is just a trade of value. You give something and they give you something back, and both people feel like they're happy. Now, it's important to understand. But let's talk today about how people perceive value, right? Because it's one thing if you think it's valuable, it's another thing if they think it's valuable. So we're going to talk about how you can actually control their perception and help them think that something is as valuable as you believe it is, right? So There's a concept called the value equation. Now, this is something that a guy named Alex Hormozy came up with. He synthesized a bunch of really age-old ideas about how humans perceive value when it comes to products and services, and he was able to put it into a really powerful formula that is very useful for you as a copywriter. It's going to help you understand which emotional levers to pull to help increase the value that someone perceives in a product or service, right? Now, something to keep in mind here, a significant portion of value is perceived only, right? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe something is valuable, you're more likely to find it valuable when you use it, right? So a big job of a copywriter is to control that perception, to increase the perceived value so the person who then uses the product is satisfied because they came in with the correct beliefs. If they walk in the door thinking something's not going to work, it probably won't for them because their beliefs aren't correct. So it's important for you to control their perceptions and increase the perceived value so that when they actually use it, they get the value that they're looking for. So let's dive into how you actually do that. So this equation that this Alex Hormozy guy came up with is that value equals the dream outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of success divided by the time to get that outcome and the effort and sacrifice. Now, quick note, this isn't like a numeric equation. You won't solve for value and get like a number like 17. Like that's not how this works. What this does is it shows the relationship between these concepts and how you need to manipulate their perception. When I say manipulate, real quick, the definition of manipulate is to handle with care, right? Yes, I'm teaching you guys how to manipulate people and to help them and serve them with the utmost care. You're going to learn how to influence their emotions and how they perceive things. So yes, I'm teaching you how to manipulate, use it for good, not for evil, right? But again, these are the elements that you need to control in order to change the way that they perceive the value, right? Now I'm going to go over each of these and what they are, what they mean, right? Let's go over the top one. Obviously, to increase the value here, you want to increase the top part of this fraction. And you do that by increasing the dream outcome that you're promising them and by increasing the perceived likelihood of success. Another way to think of dream outcome is the actual result. What's the thing they're going to get out of using this product, watching this video, whatever the value is that you're offering to them? Are you going to help them lose a bunch of weight? Are you going to help them get dates with the opposite sex? Are you going to help them get big and strong? Are you going to help them become wealthy? What is the thing that you're promising? The bigger and better that is, the more valuable it is, right? So if I think that this product will help me, become a multi-millionaire who lives on a yacht 24/7, that might be a very favorable dream outcome, right? If some mechanism could provide that to me, I would probably like that thing, right? Perceived likelihood of success. How likely do I actually believe this thing is going to work for me, right? Even if something promises the world, but you don't believe that it's actually going to work, the value goes down, right? What someone's willing to pay or what someone actually thinks the value is for a product or service goes way down if they think it's not going to work, right? So you want to increase that. Let's talk about the bottom side. So the time to get outcome or time to result. So this outcome you promised, how long is it going to take them to use this product or service to get that thing that you want? If it feels like it's going to be a long time, it's like, hey, look, I'll teach you how to make $1 million, but it's going to take you 55 years to do so. The value of that isn't nearly as cool as if I say, hey, I can help you make $1 million in 10 days, right? The time to get that result, how quickly you get that result, how quickly you start to see that dream outcome in your life is something that that contributes a lot to the value that someone's going to perceive in it, right? The other thing is the effort and sacrifice. If I said, hey, look, I'm going to show you how to make $100 million in the course of 5 years. Okay, this is cool, but you're going to have to chop off your right leg and your left pinky, right? That's a pretty big sacrifice. It might be too much of a sacrifice. It might increase this downside part so much that most people wouldn't want to buy it, right? Wouldn't want to participate in this activity. Don't blame them, right? However, if you can minimize it, if you say, hey, you don't have to change your lifestyle, don't have to change this, don't have to change that, don't have to change this, then it's going to get you a lot of value. You see this a lot of times, like health and fitness. Like you can still lose weight while eating the foods you love. Hey, you don't have to sacrifice this thing. That's them consciously increasing the value by decreasing the perceived effort and sacrifice, right? Now, let's talk about a few important notes here with this equation. This is all about perception, right? So for example, let's talk about time to get outcome, because this is a really good way to do this, right? So it all depends on what you compare it to, right? That determines how long it feels like it is to them, right? Now, if you compare, for example, let's go back to that thing, make $1 million. That's a dream outcome. It's some cool method or whatever. One way will take you 10 years. Another way would take you 1 year, and another way will take you 1 week, right? Now, if you compare 1 year to 10 years, that 1 year sounds really good. That's a tenth of the time. That's really quick. That's effective. That's the better option of the two. If you're able to juxtapose two things and say this method, it doesn't take you 100 years, it doesn't take you 10 years, it only takes you 1 year. That's perceived as more valuable of the two options, right? So if you show up and you're working with a product that takes a year to get what they want, compare it to something that takes 10 years, and they're going to feel like that 1 year is a short time, right? Don't take that 10 year or that 1 year that it might take and compare it to a 1 week thing. Because if that's the case, then this now feels like the long thing and that feels like the short thing. It's all about what you compare it to. Perception is about comparison, right? It's all about comparison. So you want to compare, for example, the perceived likelihood of success. Let's say that the product has a 35% success rate, which is stupid. Success rates are kind of it's not something you really measure with products, but let's just pretend 35% success rate. Well, that's cool, right? Like, that might seem like not very much if you compare it to 100%, but if you are able to hold that up against something that's maybe a 1% conversion or success rate, man, 35% is significantly more likely, a significantly higher perceived likelihood of success. I'm going to go that route. So it's all about what you compare these things to, right? That's how you can change the perception, how you can change the perceived value, right? And this is important, right? You want people to make good decisions. I'm assuming that the products and services you are promoting are valid. They actually produce a solid result for the people that you're doing it for. If that's the case, it is your moral obligation to work with their perception to help them make the right decision by any means and all means necessary, right? If that means changing how they perceive the likelihood of success to make it look more favorable, to change, or changing the perception of time to get outcome, or changing the perception of the effort and sacrifice by comparing it to something else, making this thing look more favorable so they make that choice and actually change their life and get the thing they want, by all means do it, right? A quick note about decreasing the time to get the outcome. Some things take a long time, right? Some things take years and years and years, and that's okay, right? Like, that's totally fine. That's what it takes. But if you want to make your options seem more powerful, if you can promise them a quick win. So maybe, like, for example, let's say you're trying to help someone lose 100 pounds. It's going to take them a long time, right? But if you promise them that they can lose the first 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, because most people, when you lose 100 pounds, probably can, that's although you're like shrinking down what they're getting, you're giving them a quick emotional win. So the perceived value goes way up. And if you're just like, in 6 months time, you wake up and you lose 100 pounds. Like, you say, hey, 2 weeks time, you wake up and you'll lost 10 pounds. And then by the end of the year, you'll have lost 100, right? That's a lot more exciting than just saying, wait a year to get the thing you want. You can say, hey, you'll start getting the thing you want 1 week, 2 weeks, 24 hours, 5 minutes in, right? That's a quick note about the time to get outcome. Now, this is extremely important, right? You need to understand how this works. So if you want to show up and help increase the perceived value that you're providing to someone, you have to look at things through this equation. You have to look through this. And again, perception is based on comparison. Weaponize this. Use the idea of comparison to increase the things on the top and decrease the things on the bottom by comparing them to things that are either worse or better inside of their mind. And that's something we'll get into more of when we talk about how to actually structure your writing. But it's something you need to understand. These are sort of the levers you can pull to increase or decrease value, right? You might help your eventual clients do this with just the words that you use on the page. You might even give them some advice to change how their product is structured to provide more value. That's something you'll go into more in depth when we get more into talk about working with clients and specific deliverables. But you need to understand these basic principles. They are key to helping you actually increase the perceived value for your customers and for your end clients, let's say. All right, so we've talked about how basically all business is just a trade of value. You give them something valuable, they give you their time, energy, and money. You just trade it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you send up and make a ton of money, right? That's how it works. Everyone's happy. You've learned how to control how value is perceived. So when you present something for that trade, you've learned how to kind of what the levers are to make that look as valuable and be as valuable as possible to that reader, or to that, in this case, the customer. Now that's how businesses operate. That's the foundation. Now, there's a key component here that facilitates and and sort of empowers that entire process. You can't make a sale though. You can't engage in that trade unless there is an implied trust, right? You don't engage in a marketplace you don't trust. So let's go over how this works. We're going to talk about how trust is created and generated, and how you can take advantage of this principle, right? So how to create or generate trust. So it's all based on trust. So there's an old saying, right? It wasn't Galileo, but it was somebody, and they said people buy from others they know, like, and trust. Know, like, and trust, right? It's foundational, right? You don't buy from people you don't know, like, and trust, right? Alex Hormozi, again, the guy who synthesized that whole value equation that we showed in one of the other videos, he also has a saying where he says sales is a transfer of belief over a bridge of trust, right? And that's true, right? You can't actually exchange value. You can't instill beliefs in that other person that they should buy your product, they should trust, or they should buy your product, that it's going to help them, that there's a likelihood that it's going to change their life at a certain time. All of that depends on there being some sort of mutual trust between you and the person you are communicating with. So the $1 million question is, how do you get someone to trust you, right? It's not by saying, trust me, right? That just conjures images of like sleazy car salesmen. You don't want to do that. And that's the thing, right? Many consumers have been burned in the past by engaging with online businesses or people who have betrayed their trust. So people are more hesitant than ever to give out their trust, but it's still the foundation of business. They only still do business with people they know, like, and trust. So how do you sort of engineer that trust? How do you make sure that the person trusts you in order to engage with you, make that trade, and exchange value with you, right? How do you get someone to trust you? The first thing is social proof. You have to understand that humans are social creatures. We evolved tribally, like we lived in tribes, right? And we had to learn how to make decisions quickly, right? If the tribe started running in that direction, right, all of a sudden they were all like out hunting, gathering, all of a sudden everyone starts running that direction. You don't really pause and think, you just start running too, because if you see the rest of the tribe making that decision, you have to kind of just assume that maybe they saw something you didn't. And as you run, you realize, oh, look, they all saw a tiger. I'm so glad I'm running. You don't like pause and wait, super verify. If you see your tribe doing something, you're more likely to do it as well, right? This still happens today. If you see other people doing something, or if you see people like you doing the same thing, chances are you will trust that action is a good idea, right? So if you see a lot of people buying from a specific business, if you see wall after like a whole list after list, person after person in a testimonial section saying how they've done this product and it gave them what they want, your belief in that thing goes up just because you see other people doing it and see other people believing it, right? We're social proof. We take cues from other people. So businesses can take advantage of this by providing social proof, showing how other people are doing this. That's kind of implied, right? If you see someone with a high follower count, or someone with lots of subscribers or something like that, you just kind of know, hey, like if 1 million other people are following this person, there must be something valuable here. You can kind of implicitly believe them, because if they were a terrible scammer, everyone would have run away, for example, right? Something to keep in mind. The second thing, one of the other things that sort of creates or facilitates trust is indicators of authority, right? Why do people trust doctors, right? Or presidents or CEOs, right? When a doctor comes in and tells you something medical, you just trust him because he's an authority figure. You see the white coat, the name tag, the stethoscope. You've been conditioned to trust authority, right? This isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? It speeds up the decision-making process. Sometimes the speed of decision-making is important, but it can be taken the wrong direction. If you're familiar with the Milgram experiment, the shock therapy experiment, they were trying to figure out how Germany was able to how like these normal people were able to do these terrible, terrible things in Germany back during the 1930s and 40s. So they conducted this experiment where they made it look like they were testing the person. They were doing like math problems. They're giving math problems, and they were going to they were shock these people. If they got the question wrong, if they got the question right, they would be fine, right? It was a test. Theoretically, it was all an experiment to see if shocking people helped them learn faster, right? But really, it was an experiment to see how far people would go along with this, right? So the person who was on the other side getting shocked was just a paid actor. He wasn't getting shocked; he was just acting, right? And the doctor running the experiment was part of the experiment. There was another assistant in there who was another part of the experiment. But the guy who was actually doing the shocking, he was just he thought he was just a paid assistant, but he was actually the one they were testing, right? So they'd go through, and the person would get some problems right and some problems wrong. And they'd, shock them a little buzz. And there was like an intensity scale, there was like a 1 to 10. And so I think there was even like a warning, like 10, like could cause bodily harm or whatever. So as they go up, they would increase the thing, and they try and see how far like what percentage of people would actually go all the way, right? Surprisingly, it was something crazy. It was like only like 1 in 10 would actually resist and say, no, I'm not going to shock this other person. Almost everyone else would just submit to the authority and just do it. People are sheep, right? Now, this can be a terribly bad thing, right? People can take this to the extreme. However, you can use it for good. If you believe that what you're doing is actually helping people, and it should, and you should be, you should only really be working for businesses and products and selling things that you actually think are going to help people. If that's the case, you can take advantage of the authority process or the authority factor when it comes to generating trust. If you can show accreditation, if you can show any kind of factor that shows that you are an authority figure, or borrow authority from some organization like that, then you should, right? Because it will help someone make the decision quicker and easier to change their life in a positive way. You got to be careful, and you as an individual should be wary of all of these tactics that I'm using. If you see someone using these, you need to always still use your own brain to figure out whether or not something's good or not, just as a good consumer. So anyways, authority is a powerful motivator and a powerful thing to show trust. Another one is indicators of competency, right? So if a business shows that they know what they're talking about, if you hear someone and they say something that you agree with, they show that they understand something, they show that they're professional, they have a professional understanding of something, and you guys can agree on something. And then if they show you bonus points, if they show you that they understand the problem even a little deeper than you, you're more likely to believe them. You're like, okay, this guy is actually obviously competent in this field. He understands the basics that I understand, and then he understands it a little bit more. I'm going to trust him, right? And indicators of competency is a powerful way to increase trust. That you're more likely to trust someone if they look and seem competent, right? This is basic stuff, but these are things that actually you can show up and help businesses by mixing these into the communication. And again, I'll show you how to do that when we talk about how to write emails or how to write Facebook ads and stuff. But these are important foundational business concepts you have to understand if you want to create and bring value to your clients. So the other one is relatability and likability. Again, humans are social creatures. We're designed to look for other people in our tribe and follow and interact with them, right? So if they like you, if they can relate to you or aspire to be like you in some way, they will think he's one of us. So they're one of us, and just trust you implicitly because, oh, he speaks like me, he talks like me. He's a likable person. Some people even do this by making like a slight damaging omission, like, oh, they admit to a small vice or something like that. There's ways to make people like you. And if you come off as a likable person, they're more likely to trust you and trust that you are a good person and have their best interest at heart, which you should. You should actually have their best interest in mind, right? Now, these are some of the most powerful ways that businesses can communicate to inspire trust. That's just in the communication, the words they speak, the way they present themselves. These are sort of some of the more powerful indicators that will trigger that trust inside of a potential customer. Now, it's not just enough to generate that initial trust, right? You have to magnify that trust, right? This might be enough to get someone to start following someone or to take 1 or 2 tiny little steps forward, maybe purchase 1 or 2 things. But trust is magnified by trading up, right? You're going to make a bunch of successive value trades. Let's say you're a customer and you're interacting with a business. First off, you'll trust them to maybe subscribe to their list, and maybe you'll trust them to maybe buy something for $5 or $10, and maybe you'll trust them to do this. And the more you interact with them, the more you read their emails and they continue to be valuable. The more you do this over time, that track record of successful transactions increases your confidence that the next transaction you make is going to work, and the next, and the next, and the next. And so you're more likely to stick with it, right? And it's not just the number of transactions, it's also the value. The more you do this on the small things, the bigger and bigger the things you'll trust them in, right? And so this is extremely important, right? If you want to eventually help someone on a high level and charge them thousands and thousands of dollars, you need to earn that trust over succession of trades, right? You need to view all interactions, all communication as a series of trades and ways to build and maintain trust. The relationship that a business has with their customer base is one of their greatest assets. That is the thing, that's the source from which all their future revenue grows. So the better you can get at enhancing and magnifying that trust, the better you'll be able to help any business you work with, either one you own or one that you help someone with, the better you'll be able to help them earn more money, right? The more a business is trusted by their market, the more customers they'll get and the more money they'll be able to make. This is one of the keys of business, one of the keys of providing value as a copywriter that you have to understand if you have any desire at all to have any kind of success in this field. All right, so we've talked about what business is. It's traded value. We've talked about how to change someone's perception of value. We've talked about how to lay the foundation and sort of build that foundation of trust for a business. Now, those are foundational concepts, and you needed to understand them in order to dive into this next topic we're going to talk about. This is the core foundational background of business. This is what is going to determine whether a business is successful or not, right? You understand some of the key components, but I'm gonna break it down. This is where we start talking about math. It's not crazy math, but it is math, right? As the great Harambe said, again, not Harambe, some other person probably, nothing can really fix bad math. At the foundation, if the math doesn't work for the business, then the business just isn't going to work, right? So let's talk about how to do this. There are two simple factors that are what determine how much a business will make ever, right? Like this is what separates a good business from a bad business. And we can really boil it down to these two factors. The first one is the amount of profit generated by a customer. So like you have one customer, how much value does your average customer give you, right? This is often called the lifetime value. I usually abbreviate it as LTV, lifetime value. And the other thing is the number of customers they help. So how many customers do you help? So if you make $10 of profit per customer and you help 100 customers, you now you've generated $1,000 of value, right? For yourself, right? You increase those two and you're going to get what you want. Obviously, you need both, right? You can't just do one. If you have, let's say you made $100,000 per customer, but you could only ever help one customer in your entire life, right? Like sure, $100,000 is great, but that's you can't really repeat that. You could never have millions and millions of dollars with this business. You'd have to look elsewhere, right? Same way the other way around, right? If you only generated like 1 cent per customer, even if you had 1 million customers, you'd only ever make like $10,000, right? Tiny, right? You need both. You need to combine both. Imagine if you sort of combine both. You had a high LTV and you had high scale. If you're able to make $10,000 per customer and you had 100,000 customers, we generate $1 billion, right? That's how $1 billion of revenue is created, right? You can think about this. Think about the businesses that help people on a high, for example, let's take Apple, right? Fairly high lifetime value. Your average customer, let's say over their lifetime, will probably spend $10,000 on an Apple products, maybe less, who knows? But they're helping millions and millions of customers, right? Like they actually have millions of customers. So you can see why they are a very valuable company. Now let's think about for example, the lemonade stand up the street in your neighborhood. Some kid is selling lemonade for $1 a glass, and he's going to sell to 5 people, right? Small company worth $5 in revenue. Negative, if you think about the cost of goods, it's actually probably negative profit. So these are the key foundational levers. Whenever you sit down and look at a business, just ask yourself, okay, what's the lifetime value per customer and what's the scale? How many people are they selling? And how could they increase this? How could they increase their lifetime value? How could they increase their scale, right? These are the two main mathematical levers you can play with to help them grow as a business, to have a successful business, right? You want to maximize both. Typically speaking, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. You want to increase that lifetime value first. That way, when you go out and find a customer, because finding a customer is expensive and difficult, it's worth it for you. There's a big ROI per customer, right? But again, you should be able to sit down. And I want you to start doing this. Tate always talks about this with coffee shops. You go sit down in a coffee shop, start analyzing the business as a professional, trying to see how they could increase this, what vulnerabilities exist. I want you to start doing this with all the businesses you've interacted with. Think about the lifetime value. Think about the scale, right? Think about how they could change or increase one or the other, right? Those are the two basic foundational mathematical levers you need to pull in any business you're working on if you want to help them increase their sales. You can do this for yourself, you can do this for other businesses you work with. You need to figure out how to increase lifetime value, help more people at a higher level, and then scale. Help as many people as possible, put as many people through that sort of lifetime value machine. So I'm going to talk about in the next video how you can actually then increase that lifetime value, because that's really the big trick. That's the first thing you got to do. You got to get that right first, and then scale it gets really easy. I'm going to talk about how to start increasing lifetime value in the next video. All right, so we've laid the foundation. You understand what copywriting is. You understand how people work. You understand how businesses interact with them and how that value exchange works. Now we're going to dive into an important skill that's going to it's going to set you apart from everyone else inside of the field, right? This is going to help you avoid a major mistake that most new copywriters make. It's going to give your writing significant potency. It's going to increase the quality of everything you do. So without further ado, or any other French words, as I like to say, let's move into the actual content here. So research. Research is the mark of the professional copywriter, right? So let's imagine for a second right now, you blink and you open your eyes, all of a sudden, boom, you find yourself jumping out of a plane in the middle of the night over Normandy in the 1940s, right? You're parachuting behind German lines with 101st Airborne Division, and you are 100% certain that when you land, you will be surrounded by the enemy from the moment your boots hit the ground. Now, let's imagine as you're floating through the air, you're going to land, all of a sudden you realize that although you do have your trusty rifle with you, you have jumped out of that plane without a single round of ammunition, no bullets. How would you rate your chances of survival? You're going to land on the ground, the Germans will start shooting, and how are you going to return fire? How are you actually going to be effective, right? If you sit down and try and write persuasively, if you try and write that email, that Facebook ad, that landing page, or whatever, without doing your research beforehand, it's exactly like running off into a gunfight without any ammunition. It doesn't matter how skilled of a writer you are, if you don't have the ammunition of an understanding of that customer, their world, the way they describe their problem. If you don't understand that or have done the research to understand that person, their problem, their situation from their terms, if you haven't collected that information, there's nothing to feed into your skill set of copywriting. There's no way for you to actually write in a way that's effective, right? Yeah, a rifle without bullets is just a baseball bat, right? Not as effective. So most copywriters, though, they get excited. They sit down, oh, cool, I'm gonna write this thing. I'm gonna write this sales, and they sit down and start trying to write because they get to finally do that thing that we like to do. Because writing's fun, right? Once you actually get in the flow of it, dude, writing is a blast, right? But a lot of people jump into it too early, just start slinging words in that Google Doc, and they usually hit walls. Their copy is empty. Professionals first research. They sit down, and the first thing they do is they do the research. They seek to understand the avatar, they seek to understand the problem, and that gives them the information they need to then sit down and intelligently write in a way that's going to resonate with that customer, that is going to motivate them, that is going to direct them in the correct way. So what do we look for when we do our research, right? We've talked about how important it is. Let's talk about how to actually do this stuff, right? So essentially you're looking for this information, right? You're going to try to determine who your target market is. And you're going to try and determine who a good avatar would be for that. You're going to seek to understand their current state. You're going to try to seek to understand their dream state. You're going to identify their key roadblock, the thing that's actually keeping them from getting what they want. And then you're going to understand the solution, that sort of if-then that's going to give them the thing that they actually like. And you understand what the product is and how to frame it in a way that fits in with this sort of map of reality and fits in with helping them get from their current state to their dream state as quickly and easily as possible, right? So the first thing, obviously, target market. You're going to ask yourself, what kind of person is going to get the most out of this product and service? Who's going to get the most out of it, right? Who are the best current customers and with the highest LTV? If you're sitting down working with a client, you're going to want to sit down and identify, okay, who's your best customers, right? If you could clone one of your current customers 1,000,000 times, who would you pick, right? That's the person you want to start with. What you want to identify, of this group of guys that are really good customers or gals or whatever, right? This group of current customers that are great. Do they have any attributes they share in common? Is there one sort of type of person? You want to identify the target market. If you're sitting down with an offer that you haven't done research on yet, or you are sitting down with a potential client, so you don't have access to all their best customers, you're gonna have to make your best guess, right? You're gonna go based on the current testimonials, the people that look like they're getting the most out of it, and sort of make your hypothesis of what the target market is. Or you're just gonna guess. You're gonna say, okay, this is the product, this is the service. I kind of understand a little bit. I'm assuming that this type of person is the one that's gonna be the highest value customer. It's the one we want to identify. You get to kind of choose who your target market will be. And then if you write for that target market, that type of person will respond. You can basically kind of reverse engineer or choose your target market to some extent, and just by deciding who you would like to work with, right? It's extremely important. Start with target market. Once you've identified who your target market is, then you want to create your avatar. And we've already talked about how to create an avatar based on like sort of the context clues you get from a product. We've talked about how to do it. You've done this already, so you know how to do this. The next step is then you do create that avatar. You sort of dial in who you're going to be writing to. You give yourself some context, and you're gonna have to go out and find out some information about these people, right? You're gonna try and understand what their life history is, understand a day in the life, check and see based on the context clues from the things that they write online or the conversations you have with them, what their values are, what outside forces they feel run their life, that sort of stuff, right? Once you've identified your target market and your avatar, then you move to your current state. Now you're going to recognize these questions. These are some of the questions you've already looked at, right? You're going to look for what's painful or frustrating in their current life of their avatar, with their current situation before they get into that product, before they start changing their life. What do they not like about that previous life? What annoys them? What do they fear? What do they lie awake at night worrying about, tossing and turning in the middle of the night? That's a good question to get your mind going. How do other people perceive them, right? So like, what's their status? Like, how do their friends, family, and relatives perceive them? How do authority figures perceive them? How does the opposite sex perceive them? How do they perceive themselves? That's an important point. What lack of status do they feel like when they move through the world? Like, do they feel like they don't have very, like what's their status? Do they lack status? Do they wish they had more status? What insults do they feel from the world as they move through their life with their current problem, right? And the key thing here is, during your research, you're going to want to find the words that they use to describe their pains and frustration. Now, this is extremely, extremely important. Let me explain why. You see, a copywriter who talks at a person will have a certain level of influence. But copywriters who can enter the conversation that is occurring in the mind of their prospect or the reader, sort of get inside and speak the same language or say the same things or at least identify the same things that they're actually saying to themselves about all this stuff in their head, right? Like the person who can, the copywriter or marketer who can do that, they gain instant authority, instant trust, and instant rapport with that reader. The reader then becomes convinced that this person understands their problem, their situation, and then any kind of solution that they recommend, they are going to inherently believe that it will work for them, just because they know that the person who is recommending it understands them on a deep level, right? And this is an important point too, as a marketer, you don't create desire. We don't convince somebody to want something or convince someone to want to hate something about their life. We just find the things that they already dislike, the things they're already thinking in their heads, that are already current frustrations and pains, and we just amplify it, right? So your job in this research is to identify what those things actually are. What are the things right now in their current life? What are their current pains and frustrations? What do they not like? What are the things they dislike? And we're just going to find ways to amplify that. So you need to find the ways that they are talking about it right now, so that you can use their language right back at them. You can enter that pain and that frustration as it exists in their brain, and then you can amplify it using some tools we'll talk about later. So once you've identified their current state, then you need to identify their dream state. What are the things they desire? If they could wave that magic wand of their life, fix everything, what would it look like? What enjoyable new experiences would they have? How would others perceive them in a positive light? How would their status change? How would they feel about themselves? How would the way they feel about themselves change, right? How does it change once, like what do they wish they felt like about themselves? If you can connect your product and solution to that thing, man, they'll be all over it. And they're more likely to achieve that feeling, right? And then you need to figure out what words they use right now to describe that dream outcome. Again, you want to enter that desire that already exists in their brain, the way they're already talking about it, and then amplify it, right? You're not trying to insert anything new in there. You're just trying to find something they already want and amplify it. Now, you might connect that with a new idea or concept and all that stuff, but you need to find what they already have in their brain. The dream state, that desire they already have, you want to find that so then you can amplify it and work with that. Because you can't put new things in their brain. You have to work with what they already have, right? You can't change the things they already want or the things they hate. You can't really change that. People are going to want what they want. They're going to hate what they hate. It's your job to step in and just work with that. That's like the ammunition you have to work with, right? So once you've identified the current state, their dream state, you need to identify their roadblocks. So you've got to ask yourself, what is keeping them from living their dream state today? What mistakes are they making that are keeping them from getting what they want in life? What part of the obstacles does that avatar not understand or even know about? Like, what are they running into that they don't even understand? What is one key roadblock that once fixed will allow them to move forward toward their dream outcome? Like, these are some questions you can ask yourself as you're reviewing the information you will be finding in your research. And we'll talk about where to find it and what to look for and stuff like that. But as you're reading what these people are saying, as you're identifying what these people are thinking, you want to take time to answer these questions, identify what that key roadblock is for them. Now, part of it is going to be like looking at what they're not talking about, right? When they're talking about current situations, talking about what they're blaming and all that stuff, you're going to see what they're not talking about. And this is where you are going to create a sort of a shift in their brain. You're going to introduce new beliefs or ideas, but it only can occur once you've worked with and tied into their current dreams and desires, right? That's why those are the first ones. This is the next part, is understanding that key roadblock. This might take some time, right? A lot of people can easily find the dream state and the current state. They can figure that stuff all out. It's pretty apparent. This one takes some advanced critical thinking and problem solving, right? As you are searching for this information, most people have the tendency to simplify or sort of skip over or just kind of go vague here on the understanding of the roadblock. If you don't understand their key roadblock, you will not be able to adequately persuade them, right? If you cannot reveal the key issue that's keeping them from getting what they want, and then that corollary solution. If you're vague or unsure about how this all works, it's going to be impossible for you to position the stuff that you're presenting, the communication that you're doing, in a way that's exciting, builds curiosity, all that stuff. It's almost impossible to do so if you don't understand the key roadblock that's keeping them from getting what they currently want. Once you understand that, then you can actually take all that desire and put them in the right place. You can't skip over the stuff. You can't get vague. You want to be as detailed and as accurate and as crystalline as possible with each of these elements. You understand how they all connect together. There can't be any gaps. There can't be any leakages. You have to understand the flow of the ideas here. Once you understand that roadblock, then you just flip it. You have to understand the solution. It's just the other side of that coin. The inverse of the roadblock is the solution, right? What does the avatar need to do to overcome that key roadblock? What actions do they need to take? What's the solution to that roadblock? They probably don't know it, right? If they don't know how to execute on it, or they don't have the tools to execute on it. Again, this can be distilled down into the, if they insert solution, do this thing, then they will be able to insert dream outcome, get the thing that they want, right? Once you've got that, you've again become crystal clear on that. That's a solid, real idea in your brain. Then you can move on to the product. Now, this is where research really comes in handy. You need to understand, how does the product actually help the avatar implement that solution? Because again, they might know their key roadblock. They might know their key. They might know their key, the key solution, like thing that they need to do, but they might not have the tools or the ability to do it. This is where you position the product as the thing that's going to help them take advantage of that solution finally, and make it easy, quick, risk-free, and fast to get the thing that they want. How does this product help the reader increase their chances of success? How does it help the reader get the result faster? How does the product help them get the result with less effort or less sacrifice? What makes this product fun and exciting, right? Like that's an important part that a lot of people overlook. What makes this cool and fun and enjoyable, right? What does your target market like about related products, and what do they dislike and hate about different products? So one of the things you'll be doing is you'll be going out and finding similar or related products that solve that problem for that same avatar, that they help them overcome that same roadblock, get the same outcome. You're going to look at that, and you're going to find out, what do they really, really like about these products? And those are those aspects of things they like. That might be something you want to incorporate in the way you present your product. But almost more important is you want to identify the things that they currently hate about the existing solutions that are out there in the world, right? Because if they hate those things about that product, and you show that your product does it in an opposite way, it flips that thing that they hate, or removes that part of the problem, or makes it to where it's not this, but it's this actual thing that they like, you flip it on them from something they hate and something that they like, then you're going to stand out competitively compared to the other products. Your product will now look like it has all the answers and has that problem taken away, right? Imagine like you're going to buy a car, and all the other models are cool, but the AC isn't that great, right? Like they're fast, they're awesome, they're amazing, they're super comfortable, all this stuff, but the AC kind of sucks. And then there's this other one product that has all those same things. It's got the fast car, all cool looks, comfortable seats, but the AC is awesome, right? Which one is the person most likely going to buy? Unless there's some other, big important reason, people are going to pick the one that has that one thing that they like. So you want to identify any opportunities that exist in the market so you can exploit them when you create your product, right? So where do you go to find all this information? There's a lot of places. The best place is the client and their current customers, right? So typically when you're sitting down to work with a client, they at some point went through that same journey that their customers do. They usually, most businesses are solving a problem that they had before. So they're going to understand what it was like before this product existed. They're going to understand what they wanted. They're going to have all that information inside their own brain. And they've been working with clients and customers in the space for a long time. So you can ask them these questions and they can usually give you some good answers, right? What's even better than that is asking or identifying their current customers. Again, especially when you're trying to find the avatar, when you're trying to find the target market, if you can sit down, if you can set up a meeting with a business's best customer and talk with them about these things and record that meeting and take notes, my friend, that is a gold mine of information. You'll be able to speak directly. That's your avatar. And now you know your exact avatar language, you know, all of the stuff like that is the best, right? If you can't actually do a conversation, read their online testimonials. If they got video testimonials, that's great. If they just got written testimonials, that's cool too. That's the first place you go to look for this information, right? Then you go on social media, watch that company's YouTube videos, read the comments, look at the comments on, you know, their Instagram post, their TikTok, whatever, right? Just go read the comments, go read what people are saying and talking about, the videos that are related to this topic, you know, this roadblock, the solution, their frustrations. Go read that and see what they say. People overshare online. It's crazy, right? People will just go in, they'll share their deepest, darkest emotional experiences, things that they've gone through. You got to take advantage of it. One of my favorite places to go is Amazon.com reviews. So if you go and look for books, especially like it's a product that's like information or course or something like that, you go find a book that's supposed to help people get the same outcome that your product does, right? And then go read the 5-star reviews, see all the things that people like. Typically, people will overshare there. They'll talk about their transformation. They'll talk about what they're experiencing before. You get a ton of stuff. They'll talk about what they really, really like about the information that's presented, right? And then go look at the 1-star reviews. That's where people will tell you the things they disliked about that product. Again, that's extremely important. You get a lot of cool information there. You identify opportunities to help people that are underserved currently. Another place to go look online is Reddit. There's community subreddits for almost any subniche or avatar that exists out there. You can go and collect their language, their experience, get context about other aspects of things they're dealing with. It's a fantastic place to go and look to find pains and frustrations and find desires and find things that they tried in the past that haven't worked and things that do work, that kind of stuff. Quora is really good as well. It's a good platform to go find questions and answers surrounding that problem that the product solves about or people trying to get that same outcome. It's extremely, extremely useful. Because you also see a lot of answers that people are giving. It's a gold mine of information. And then, of course, trusty Google, right? When in doubt, do a Google search, right? There's ways even to filter your results by just like forums and like discussion boards and stuff like that. Again, if you just Google things, you know, Google the customer, use that same customer language that you've identified these other sources and throw it in Google, you'll find all sorts of cool opportunities to just mine through people oversharing and talking about their problems and desires and their roadblocks and solutions. And you'd be surprised what you can find online, right? And again, this is going to take some time, right? You're going to go out and you're going to comb over the internet to try and find this information. Now, I'm going to do a walkthrough video where I show you some examples of like looking at through some of these different places to go find this information, so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like. But you're going to sit down and you're going to do this research before you do any serious writing, right? It's like that old Abraham Lincoln quote, you know, if I only had an hour to chop down a tree, I would spend the first 45 minutes sharpening my axe. This is extremely, extremely applicable here, right? If you want to write and persuade on a deep level, if you want to communicate and build rapport with people, if you want to have the ability to show up to any market online, any industry, and put together a copywriting plan, an internet marketing plan that resonates with people, takes advantages of gaps in the marketing, and persuades people at the deepest level, and are able to then ascend them up higher than anybody else up a value ladder. Doing your research is extremely important. And this is something you definitely need to do before you start writing, but something you continue to do as you move through working with a particular brand or running your own brand, right? You're going to continue to be mining the world for this sort of information so that you can continually refine your message and improve your message so it continues to persuade at a deeper and deeper level. Research is key. Research is a way to stand out from the masses and to persuade deeply. And again, I'll be doing a walkthrough. You'll be doing some practice research to go out and learn how to gather this information. This is something that will set you apart from anybody you end up competing with on that global level as a marketer. All right, so last video, we talked about what research is. And in this video, it's going to be the first like walkthrough for you guys where I actually do it live. So I'm going to show you how you can go through, do research and collect some of that information. Obviously, won't hit every single item on like this list that you're about to see because it's pretty extensive, but I'm going to give you a general feel for what it's like to go online and find the ammunition you need to write effectively. So let's dive in. So you've got a document here. I put together a research template. It's taken those questions that are in the slides that we went through in the last videos. It's all in one document here. So you guys are going to have read-only access to this. So let me show you how you make a copy for yourself, an editable copy, so you can actually like copy and paste stuff inside of it. So go to File, you go to Make a Copy, you hit Make a Copy. You go ahead and come up with a name. You hit Make a Copy, and it'll open up a new tab where you can actually edit the document. So you can actually paste stuff in there. You're going to get, again, a read-only version that you have a link to inside of the program. But this is how you make a copy for your own research when you're sitting down to start on a project, right? So make a copy of this thing, and here you go. You've got a document here where you can copy and paste stuff. Now we're going to be doing an imaginary product, imaginary person, all that stuff, and we're going to go ahead and just skip. I mean, target market, avatar, like obviously you go and find that on like someone's webpage or something like that. But let's just pretend for a second that we're working with our classic example. Amy, she's a soccer mom, and she is trying to lose weight. She's about 100 pounds overweight. She wants to lose weight. We can kind of imagine some of the stuff about her life. Let's say that she has, let's say she grew up, went to college, got married, had a couple kids. She does some part-time stuff. She wakes up every morning, takes kids to school, runs errands, takes them home, takes them to soccer practice, right? The soccer mom thing. She really values time with her family. She thinks, and we can kind of imagine some things. But anyways, outside forces, you might blame her mother for some of her problems in her life when it comes to fitness and stuff like that. She might blame the food industry and fast food for creating things that make it that are fattening, right? There's no good options for her. She might blame other people for like there might be some other issues we might run into, but we'll see if we can find some of those things. And we're going to find some of this information here as we go through. But let's start playing around with like current state, what's painful, the dream state, that sort of stuff. Let's start playing around with that. Now, one of my favorite places just to start, I mean, I mentioned YouTube and stuff like that. That's pretty self-explanatory. You would just go to YouTube, start searching around for stuff. Actually, let's do that. Let's go to YouTube and see what we can find. So I'm going to create a new tab here. We're going to go to YouTube, and let's search for some content that soccer moms might be viewing when it comes to their own fitness. So now I'm capturing all this in HD, so it's going to be a little slow as we go through there. We're going to have to wait for pages to load. In the meantime, yeah, let's go here. Let's say like soccer mom fitness tips, just for the fun of it. Let's just see. Let's see what we get. All right, so here we go. Look, a playground workout for mom. Okay, this is probably a good place to get started, right? Let's take a look. Let's open this video. I'm not going to watch the video here with you guys, but you probably should watch the video, throw it on 2x, speed through, see some of the things that this other person, this lady is saying when she teaches these people some tips. But I just want to go take a look at the comments. That's where I want to play around in, right? So let's take a look. Let's see if anyone overshares anything. We've only got 4 in this video. I love this video. Great to work. Beautiful fit moms, whatever. Let's take a look at, let's see if there's some other results. Let's see. Here we go. Another one. This is let's look at the CBS soccer mom workout. That should have a lot. I guess it only has 1,000 views. We'll see how many comments it has. All subscribers, 0 comments. See, and a lot of this, like, again, this is a free flowing video. You're going to see some things that you like, things that you not like. Here's the like mom sanity. Let's see if we can find some stuff in here. This is just a video targeted for sport mom sanity. Okay, yeah, cool lady talking about stuff. Let's take a look and see if there's any comments. Now, this might be a good place for, let's take a look and see if we can find some general information here. Mom was a whatever person. We would quickly learn that if we didn't pitch in, things didn't get done. Okay, so here's a frustration. Kid, probably like kids not helping, like, are they just a burden now? My brother's playing provincial level, a horse playing post-secondary, whatever. Bunch of replies. My 4-year-old is in Taekwondo. Now I'm like, why did I do this for stuff? Okay, so this is cool, right? This right here is a way that this is internal dialogue. It's something that this lady is saying about her frustrations in her life, juggling all of these things, right? I'm going to just paste this entire thing into the document, right? So I'm going to paste this into current state. Now, you're going to, let's Control Shift V. Let's do this without the stuff. But this is literal, like inside of her brain stuff. This is how moms complain about their lives, which, as cool as that is, let's just keep going and see what else. So glad to see this type of video. Love the tips and tricks more than scripted content. So thanks for helping us all be more successful mamas, right? That might be how she's describing the future stuff. This whole like scripted tips and tricks instead of scripted, that might be something we consider for things that they like. But let's go ahead and throw that in dream state. Let's see. There you go. Let's keep going. Let's see what else we can find. So, great tips. I'm a mother of 3 and my kids go between houses. So this is a challenge, right? Especially if they're having to juggle multi-parent homes or like divorce and stuff like that, really common. They learned they had to be responsible for their own gear and bags. Otherwise, things were forgotten in the other parent's house. Took a few times, the consequence not being prepared. They learned quickly. Thankfully, we have a good relationship. It's not despite not being together, just in case. Whatever. So they're just talking about stuff. This is, again, more about the actual balancing of the stuff and less about fitness, but we can learn some stuff about the general life. Amazing tips. Hard for us moms to do that much. Ooh, I like that. So many amazing tips, but super hard for all of us moms to do that much. You'll notice like something that's interesting here is, I mean, it's not terribly outlandish, but you can see that they are using a significant amount of, I pasted that in the wrong one. I'll go ahead and close that. They're using a lot of emojis, which is cool, right? Like that's how people talk. That's how people communicate. So that might be something we would note inside of our avatars, that, hey, they use emojis. It's a big part of how they communicate. Let's keep going. So we can continue to mine this. But this is slightly adjacent. This is more about here we go. This is interesting. So protecting family time, try out tips from mom's perspective, what's worth it, what's not worth it, things too clear. This might be something about how they actually balance or make decisions. So I might throw that under the values part here. Let's go ahead and just paste that. Some values they might have. And again, this document might get a little messy as you copy and paste things in. You have to go through and clean it out. Right now, you're just going to gather a bunch of information, and then you're going to try and synthesize it afterwards. That's how the research process works. So let's skip this video. Let's type in mom workout or mom weight loss tips. Let's try that one. All right. You can search these things. You just kind of have to imagine what kind of content they might create. Mama 3, how she lost 100 pounds in 13 months. That's kind of what we would be trying to help these people do. Here we go. Fit Mother Project. I probably would just mine the heck out of this YouTube channel. I'll go check all of these things and just mine it. So let's take a look and see what has the most views. That has 1.5 million views. Let's look at both of these videos. So I'm going to open 2 new tabs. We're going to look at both videos. I think I might have just opened one. It's fine. Oh, Dr. Anthony, some dude telling us about it. That's great. Awesome. Let's take a look and see what the comments are. Oh, check it out. Thank you. I know loads of mothers that always say, I want to lose weight, but don't know where to start. That's a cool, if that's actually what they're saying, that'd be cool. We copy and paste that in there. These people are talking about fit. They're trying to yeah, that's interesting. I really appreciate this video. I'm going to use your tips in my everyday routine, starting with eating healthy. Thanks so much for making the video. Mom's busy women on behalf of my wife. Thank you. She's constantly busy and unbooked. Using coffee as a meal replacement. Wow, look at those. Okay, that's look at all those fabulous ladies. Yeah, this is not great. Yeah. As a busy woman, just really appreciate this video. Everything said makes sense. And we use your tips in everyday routine. Yeah, it's just like in general, thanks. And again, sometimes you'll find things that are great, sometimes you won't. Let's take a look at this lady's video. And this is cool. Like you would watch her, like this lady, I'm not going to do it right now, but you would actually listen to the things she says because she's the target market. She might be our ideal avatar. We get a lot of information from this woman, how she lives her life, what she talks about in this interview. Let's take a look at the comments though. Boom. Let's see. Unless you physically trip. weight loss donuts, there is no such thing as a slip. Get that in mind. I had to realize that I was never going to be motivated, and I had to work my self-discipline. So this is a quote from this lady about the shift that had to change. This is probably closer to roadblock and solution. So let's go ahead and put that in there. This can be, and research can be, a fairly tedious process. You are going to have to go through and you're going to have to go through and mine for information. And as you said, we've spent 2 or 3 minutes right now just looking at like one source on YouTube. Again, we can keep going. Here's an interesting thing. This is some guy explaining this, but this is a good status. I'm assuming it's some guy. She lost weight, such a healthy weight, and it shows not only in her physical appearance, but the confidence she exudes from her smile as someone in the middle of their own weight loss journey. I see her as inspiring. This is something we could use to describe the dream state, right? Because this is not just about like weight loss. This is talking about how status comes into help, or how it comes into play, right? This is someone else perceiving. They're describing this dream state. This is a person going through the same thing. They want to lose weight in a healthy way. They want to not just improve their physical experience, but exude this confidence from her smile, right? Like that's dream state. That's something they want. We can use that. We could continue to go through YouTube videos and continue to watch these interviews and continue to stuff. We're going to skip off of that, and we're going to move into Amazon.com and see what we can find here. So again, I like to look at books. Books are going to have some of the best stuff. Like if you try and look for like weight loss pills, unless you're like actually your product is the more of a physical product, you can go do the same thing. But if it's like an information or a course or a coach or something, coaching or something like that, then you'd obviously want to go look more on the book side. So let's say weight loss for women. Say weight loss for moms. Let's try that. Again, we want to try and at least narrow it down to the avatar as best we can. So yeah, let's go ahead and filter this by books. Books. Research. Now, here we go. Got a lot of results. Now they're going to try and filter the algorithm is going to try and throw things in front of us that we think they want, so that they think someone will buy. So I'm going to go take a look to see if there's some filters here. Usually you can do it by reviews. So we're going to do it by most reviews. Yeah, here we go. Sort by most reviews, right? This is a quick way to get the top one, right? Okay, air fryer cookbook. Okay, these are related things. Let's see if we can find one. Attitude of gratitude, blah, blah, blah. Quick and easy food. It's not supposed to be this way. Finding unexpected with disappointment leaves you. Related fasting. I'm trying to find something that's a little closer to women. So if we were to go with a binge eating thing, which might be part of it, we'll see if we can find this. Let's go ahead and open up these reviews and see what we can do. Yeah, okay. Let's see. Let's go down to reviews. This is a book about ending binge eating, and specifically around mindset. Right now, if we're gonna, let's assume that like the key roadblock is probably going to be something around mindset. These reviews might be a good place to do it. So again, over here you can filter by 5-star and 4-star reviews. Let's back out of this individual one. All right, back down here again. You can read this guy's copy too for the sales page. Mr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Let's take a look. Did it again. Let's take a look. Select reviews. This is a tedious process. You're going to be going through slowly collecting information, but every so often you're going to hit a gold nugget, and it's going to be the ammunition you really, really need. Oh, Cups of Capricorn. I wonder if this is a woman who's into astrology. Let's take a look. So if you think this book about self-shaming, you didn't read it carefully. Keto, low carb, intermittent fasting, long-term fasting, blah, blah, blah. I wanted them all to work, and they wouldn't if it weren't for my addiction to sugar. That's something they might blame it. They're addicted to food. I first totally dismissed this book when I first heard about it. Then I think I heard him on a podcast in a few months. A failure to keep me to my best laid plans piled up. A seed has been planted, though. Gave the podcast and his ideas another shot. I thought, no way. And then I thought, what do I have to lose? What is the alternative? Diabetes, dementia. I'm doing it. I don't tell anybody, but it's working. For the first time in a long time, I haven't had sweets in weeks. Can't believe it. I'm so pissed off at my pig now. Interesting. Wasted so many years. Listen, give this a shot. Give it a serious look. I finally figured out I can't do all those neat low carb plans unless I get this nasty boar under control. I think she's talking about like an inner pig. That's interesting. There's some stuff in here, right? Like we can look at how she went through a process where she made her decision. She thought about what she was afraid of, diabetes, dementia, all that stuff. We could think about that. This guy, oversharing. Let's take a look. Joni, let's see what Joni says. March 28th, 2019. Reading negative reviews and getting sad because I take it into serious consideration. Looking at Amazon, thought that's an important point. Negative reviews into consideration. It's a part of the buying behavior. And the thought these reviews, boom, 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 common thread in the negative reviews, they aren't from people who tried what Dr. Livingston suggested. They're from people who read or started to read the book. Keep this in mind. Presumably, these are binge eaters who, or why would they even try to read a book like this? They download a book, start to read it. Notice that's different than all the other concepts I've learned about binge eating. Just missing because I'm matched with everything. However, a reason to work for them instead of trying the concepts. I'm reading the book myself. It's something that anyone can misunderstand. So this is like a champion of this idea, right? Let's take a look at what they said though about their life. This book has changed everything about my life. It is written well. No, it's not fabulous writing. It's a psychotherapist, not a writer. He's a podcast. Interesting. So she just rambles about the actual brand and product itself. So this is probably good if you're going to try and collect stuff about the product, what she likes. Okay, she's talking about how her life has changed. So it's been 3 months. My life has changed so much. I'm in a better place mentally. I still have not binged, and I do not think about binging very often. The pig, it's definitely like there's this inner pig concept here. Interesting. Take the step back, hear the voice. Remember, it's not me. It makes all the difference. I have control of my eating. It feels great. I haven't had a binge yet, even when I have cake or cookies, and I've had many reasons to binge. Stress. Okay. It's been almost 4 weeks. This book is the answer. This is the first time in 48 years of life that I can remember not being a slave to food. Being a slave to food is probably a good way to describe their current state. Again, they feel trapped. They feel like a slave. That's important information. So you guys get the idea of the process now, right? You can go through, you can read this stuff. This may or may not be a good example, but you can keep going. You go through and you find people to match it that have overshare and talk about what they like. Let's look at the 1-star reviews. Let's see what people didn't like about this book. I got a few pages in right away. I'm all about loving yourself and respecting yourself. There are some values for the avatar. This book is the opposite. He kept talking about an appetite and calling it the inner piggy or something. It's so rude. I got to the point where he said, if you don't like how I'm talking, it's making you mad, put the book down. So I did, right in the trash. This is beautiful, right? This is the things that people hate about a different product. This is information that's going to help us present our stuff, especially if we wanted to go after people that are in a similar place. Let's make that not red. Things they did not like. Anyways, it's a cool thing. Amazon.com, a lot of good opportunities inside of Amazon.com. Let's see, let's go to Reddit. Look, there's a community. 26 members, might be a little small. Let's see what we can find inside of it. Gotta be careful with Reddit. Hopefully I don't get you in anything terrible. Yeah, how I get my workouts done. Family yoga cards on Kickstarter. This is just a bunch of just random mom stuff. But we got some links to videos here. There's not a lot of discussion happening here in this Reddit. Let's try fitness for moms. Let's see what we can find. Auto newspaper, Fit Mama, support group for fitness for moms. That might be a good search term for Google in a second. It's a support group for fitness. This is Our Fit Mama. Oh, that's got a lot more people in it. Let's take a look at that one. It's a Facebook group. Okay, cool. That's another place to go look. Facebook groups. Again, that's a part of social media. If you can go find Facebook groups that have stuff. Be interested. I wonder if this one's open, we'll take a look at it. I don't even know if it'll let me open. I'm in an incognito tab. Let's see here. Fitness discussion for moms. Perfect. got this playlist. Let's see if we can filter by conversation. Now, wait a second. That's a good one. Boom. Here we go. This is some lady oversharing about trying to lose weight postpartum. So after having baby number 2, it's taken me a while to get motivated, find a rhythm, but I'm on a roll now. I haven't been able to lose my baby weight. I'm about 10 to 50 pounds over my pre-pregnancy weight. So working on trying to lose this. So trying to should I conceive or this? Let's take a look at, this is probably a good example of current state. So this might be their current situation. You paste that in there. Again, you're just going to go through and slowly start pasting in this information. You're going to start, as you go through, you're going to notice common threads. You're going to start trying to find things that are common among some of these people. Notice there's specific guidance that you're going to find, or specific repeating things. You're going to see that everyone is saying the same phrase about their pain, or everyone's saying the same thing about their desires. But let's take a look. These are people talking about pregnancy, losing weight during pregnancy, anemia. Okay, this is more about this. Do math on calories burned out, calories a pound of human fat, blah, blah, blah. Doctors and dietitians don't want to give you the hard, cold truth because they assume you get butthurt and refuse to listen to them at all. Losing weight is about what you eat, not working out. Workouts can help the tone, change your diet. Working out won't do much unless you're working out. So these people are trying to tell them, hey, it's not about the workout, it's about the diet. But yes, these people are reframing this about this stuff. Let's take a look and see. I'm interested. Now I'm in here like trying to figure out stuff. Let's keep going. Yoga. Let's see if I can filter this by top. Let's get the top ones from this Reddit. Today, let's go all time. So we get the top one. So this lady, she made a big transformation, a lot of comments. I bet we're gonna find some interesting things inside of here, right? This is essentially the before and after we're trying to probably generate for our customers. I really like that you look so happy in both. That's a value, right? Again, now look, we found a common thread. People are talking about this whole confidence and value thing of like happiness in both. So it's like they want to lose weight, but they don't want to feel like a terrible person in the middle, like while they're doing that. So I think we're stumbling upon like maybe one of our first key values here. So look at this. I love how the sad before picture is dying out. This is something they might like or not like about it. Weight loss should be a happy journey from start to finish. We only live once. Okay, bingo. This is key. We're gonna put this inside of values as well. This is key, right? We've now identified a key important value. If we start talking about this, when it comes to our solution, if we make sure that the solution is happy, then they're going to be a lot more ready. Like, oh, this is great. I want to be happy the whole time, right? You want tips that you'd be willing to share. Okay, this is the lady, mostly consistency. If you've had a bad week, blah, 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 start over the next week. Take it day by day instead of all at once. Good things come with time and ambition. Don't get discouraged by what you can't do. Just do variation. I use a Fitbit to help track my physical activity so I can eat less than I burn every day. Again, that's part of the solution. It's just math willpower that gets the job done. Okay, this might actually be, I'm going to slap this whole thing in the solution section here of our deal. Like this is easy, right? Like this is the funny thing about it, right? When it comes to writing and collecting information, people share so much online. Like there is so much here that is just going to power this. Like this is all you need to know. You need to understand like the information that you're going to use to completely reshape someone's mind, motivate them to take change, and help them convince to purchase a product, maybe tens of thousands of dollars worth of product, is right here online. Is just buried in a Reddit comment. Like this is the kind of stuff you need, right? All these people, absolute truth, discipline, great work. You look happy. Again, this is a very common thing. You look happy both time. Holding my whole world. Obviously, they care about their kids. Let's see what else we got here. My brother just died to complications from extreme obesity. So this like trying to get this is funny. Like Happy. And the cool thing about this is this is also status, right? You can see how these people are all congratulating and perceiving this woman for making the change. And that's how you can frame what they're going to be experiencing after this, right? This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. This is the kind of stuff you want. Anyways, you can go through, mine the rest of the stuff. Like I said, Reddit's a cool place. So gone through Reddit. Yeah, you could join Facebook groups too. That's another cool way to go through this. We've gone through Amazon. Let's see what else we want to do. Should we do Quora? Let's do Quora. Yeah, so Quora is cool. Let's take a look. I don't want to ask a question, actually. That would be unfortunate. How do you lose weight as a soccer mom, right? Let's take a search. Gosh, this is frustrating. Nope, I do not want to sign up for crazy stuff. This is an ancient Quora account. Let's take a look. How to lose. Spell lose wrong. Lose weight. Probably spell weight wrong too. I write for a living, but I don't spell very well. I just use autocorrect. Mom. Let's say busy mom. Busy mom. See what we can find. Core is cool. You're going to get someone, mostly you're going to find value in the person who's asking the question. Sometimes people answer who were in a similar situation. I should probably actually type this correctly. Wow, that's crazy. They don't have an autocorrect. Gotta love Quora for not having an autocorrect. Wait. How can busy moms lose weight? Let's take a look. All right, let's have this load up. Now, Quora, again, it's a place people come ask questions and people do answers. A lot of people come in here to build their brands and stuff. Let's take a look. How can busy moms lose weight? It's a question. Here's a bunch of related ones or answers. Yeah, here's the related answers. So here's some woman talking about some solution. Here we go. Here's someone sharing their story. Mrs. Shipara Roy. After my baby was born, I was 30 kilograms more than my normal weight. That's a lot, which used to be 54 kilograms. My foot size got bigger by half inches due to my body weight. That woman's ballooned up. Anyways, let me answer your question right. I lost all my extra weight in about 8 months and got my pre-pregnancy weight. Of course, the journey was not easy, but interesting and challenging. Let's take a look at the full thing here. Workouts. I take a half hour, 5 days a week for running and cardio workouts. I do yoga and mat exercise at home, but generally early morning, and I try to do them 4 times a week. I'm very regular in my exercise and workouts, and if I'm traveling, I make sure I carry my running shoes with me. Definitely was translated. Now coming to food, I eat everything, but my portions are small. I try not to eat sweets. I don't eat my toddler leftovers. Oh, cook at home, and yes, once a week I do eat outside, but limited portions. I love boom, disciplined person. How do I lose without my mom knowing? The best ways to lose weight. And these, you're going to find more stuff here about the actual product and solution. But yeah, Core is a good place to take a look. You're going to want to take a look and see what you can find inside of here. Oh, look, all these pictures of kiwis and food and stuff. It's great. Anyways, here we go. This is great. This is the kind of question you want. What are the 3 hardest parts? Yeah, so all the stuff about busy parents, here's the hardest part. The actual physical parts and why they're difficult. These might be part of the roadblocks. Again, Core is cool. A lot of cool things inside of Core you can do. You guys have gotten sort of a sneak peek into the process, right? I've gone through, you've watched me wait for screens to load. I've shown you some of the valuable places to get started. Obviously, you would keep going. You would keep collecting this stuff, keep mining those Amazon.com comments, keep mining social media. You watch those interviews. You have information from your client's website. You go over those as well. But this is just the process. You just copy and paste in here. And as that information builds up, you're going to find common threads. You're going to, at the very end, you'll pause, you go back through, you review your stuff. I like to like highlight the stuff that I feel like has the highest emotional impact. And then that's the ammunition. That's the stuff you plug and play inside of your emails, inside of your landing pages, and you're trying to capture their attention and tease them with something valuable. It's just right there. You just take that stuff that you captured during your research and plug and play. Now, this is going to give you a huge advantage over anybody else. As you can see, if you just sat down and tried to write for this market, sure, maybe you get a few things right. But if you go and actually do the research and kind of get a real feel for what's out there, you do the observe part of the OODA loop when it comes to research, you're able to come up with a better hypothesis for your first piece of copy, your first writing, right? You're not going to reach a point where you're stuck and like, I don't know what to write next, because you have a vast library of research that you can pull from and use to immediately slap down some copy that's going to catch attention. It's going to motivate and persuade someone to change their lives. Research is the first step. This is how you do it. You have reached the point where the rubber hits the road inside of this program. This is when you really start creating copy for the first time. Now, I want to help you manage your expectations at this point, because this is when it starts to feel difficult. You're gonna learn the lessons. You're gonna start writing your fascinations. In the next stage, you're gonna learn some lessons. You're gonna start writing full-on emails, and then it continues to get more exciting as time goes on. But there's a tendency for a lot of students when they reach this point to think, "Oh no, this is difficult," or "Oh no, my writing isn't that good." Understand that your writing isn't going to be that good at this stage. Your first few attempts, they're not going to be that good, and that's okay. Mine were just as horrible as yours are. As you go through this, you don't have to be perfect in order to carry on to the next, move on to the next stage inside of the program. It's okay. Do your first attempt, learn the lessons, make your first attempt, pass the quiz, and then move on to the next stage. And that this process of improving your craft and getting better and refining your ability to write fascinations, to write emails, to write landing pages, etc., is a process that's going to continue the duration, let's call it your career as a copywriter. I still spend time every day improving my skills in these key areas, right? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to understand the concepts, have gone through the exercise, and at that point, feel free to move on to the next stage. You will continue to refine your skills each day as you take some time to practice. Once you get to your copywriting unit at the end of the boot camp, you're going to take a lot of time there, and there are going to be a lot of people who will help you improve your craft. At this stage, you just need to understand the concepts, be able to apply them inside of the mission, and then move on to the next stage. The faster you can do that, the more you will learn, the better the context will be, and the better your ability to be effective as a copywriter. It'll just stack up like crazy at that point. You will make more money if you move through this quickly and continue to practice over time. Let's see you in the next stage. All right, so in the last video, I taught you about curiosity, attention, how to capture it, how to create it. You understand the concepts now. I'm going to show you how to actually do that through something called fascinations, right? Fascinations are the Lego blocks of copywriting, right? So before we dive into like writing emails, landing pages, Facebook ads, or anything like that, you need to learn the smallest building block of copywriting, which is fascinations. Like where do fascinations come in the copywriting? They're literally everywhere. You know, like this is a sales page, the headline, it's fascination. This Facebook ad, first little part, fascination. This email, littered with fascination. They're literally the building blocks, the Lego pieces that entire pieces of copy are written with, right? So if you learn how to write killer fascinations, you'll have no problem capturing your reader's attention, which is the first and greatest battle you have to win as a copywriter. You have to capture their attention, and you have to maintain curiosity and desire throughout the entire time. Fascinations will make that happen. If you do it right, fascination will get the reader literally addicted to reading you. So what exactly is a fascination? I've hyped them up pretty good. Let's talk about what they actually are. A fascination is a short line or two that combines desire with intrigue to create a potent effect in the mind of the reader, right? So again, done right, they're going to read it. They're going to see that intrigue. They're going to see that thing that they care about combined with some like some specific intrigue, some specific curiosity elements, and it will make them rabid to read the rest of your work and take action at the end, right? It creates like a splinter in their mind, right? So here's some examples, some like in-depth examples of different really good fascinations. You can get kind of a feel for what it's like. So here's one. This is one of my favorite headlines of all time. And it's wife of famous movie star swears under oath her new perfume does not contain an illegal sexual stimulant. Obviously, this is connected to a desire. And there's enough elements here of there's some specificity, there's some drama, there's some elements of mystery and intrigue that make this extremely, extremely curious. You want to know more about this perfume, and wait, there's enough drama here that you have to continue reading, right? This is one. This was from like a single line inside of a landing page, just one little line about halfway down the page. So this is one of many of these fascinations that were on this page, but it was just my weird hashtag strategy that helped me grow by 52,000 followers in 1 month, right? Specific detail compared to connected to something that a person would care about a lot. If you're in the social media game, this is something that would catch your attention. It's specific and it's got a level of mystery, the weird hashtag strategy. There's a level of curiosity there. You want to read, you want to discover what this is. And this is another famous headline, old school ad. That's why it's kind of grainy. And it's amazing secret discovered by one-legged golfer, adds 50 yards to your drives, eliminates hooks and slices, and can slash up to 10 strokes from your game almost overnight. If you read this back in the day and you were a golfer, you had to figure it out, right? It's so interesting and intriguing, and it's connected to something you care about so much. You have to, you can't ignore this. You have to keep reading, right? And essentially all fascinations, they really have two main elements. One is that implied opportunity or threat. There's that thing that they want, that thing that they care about. And then there's specific details or elements that make the reader think that there's something real on the other side, the thing that gives them just enough information that it creates an information gap. So they can be curious about it. And again, when done correctly, your avatar should read this, like those headlines we read, those fascination bullets we read. If you're an avatar that's directed to, you should not be able to ignore that fascination, and you should feel that strong compulsion to keep reading. You have to figure out the answer, right? It's that riddle, that unsolved riddle. Now I'm going to give you some formulas you can use to create fascinations, right? We talked about what fascinations are, how they work. You understand how curiosity works. I'm going to give you some actual recipes for how to do it, right? Now, these are general recipes, right? Like you'll be able to use them. You can combine these elements together. You can use them independently. Some of them might seem a little salesy, a little cliche. You might not use all of them in every project. You might need to find the balance there. We'll talk about that a little bit at the end, but these are recipes you can pick up and start writing fascinations right away for any project you're using, right? First one, how to. I've created an example one here. So if you're going to write using a how-to, you would just swap out the specific details with the specific details from your project and the desire or threat or whatever with the desire threat from your avatar in your project, right? So how to become a 10K a month copywriter as quickly as possible. The secret to writing killer fascinations every time you sit down at your computer. There's the why formula, why most billionaires start their day in the exact same way. The what formula, what to do if you want to land your first copywriting client in less than 30 days. What never to say on a first date if you actually like the girl. It's kind of like an inverse of the what. And that one's a really good one for the threat. Then there's plus. Plus is good if you want to stack on an additional. If you stack fascinations, they obviously amplify, right? So if there's one fascination that's cool, but if you add 3 back to back, they stack on top of each other, it amplifies. And the plus is one that lets you do that. So plus the exact phrase that will make her blush, smile, then fall deeply in love with you. You can stack curiosity, stack fascinations. The number of fascinations is a powerful one because it gives specificity. 7 steps to guarantee you will reach your push-ups goal each day. 7 steps, it's specific. They want to dive into it. The right, wrong one. This is old one, a classic one. If overused, it can come off as a little salesy, but there are some applications when it's really powerful. You can use the same mental experience with slightly different phrasing and achieve the same result. Here's an example. So working smart is what will guarantee your success, right? So you put that commonly held belief or what their main belief is, right? Question mark. Wrong. You're saying, hey, your expectation, you're actually wrong. We're going to break your expectation. Why working smart will never be enough and what you need to do instead. And you can see that that's a kind of a combination of a couple of these formulas. The right, wrong one is a powerful one to swap their expectation. They expect it to be one thing and you're telling them, no, it's another thing. It's kind of related to not statements. Then there's the warning. That's obviously a threat one. Warning, don't email another client until you learn this new upsell question that will dramatically increase your closing price. Warning, something big and important is happening. Again, that can be overused. You got to be really careful with it. This is a good question one. So are you afraid you'll get stuck with a depressing white picket fence life if you don't make real money now? Like this is a way to connect to a pain or a desire that they have. That's a good way to get them to pay attention. The human brain really can't ignore questions. That's actually an interesting little point I want to make here. if you ask a question, they might not like it, they might not answer, but they can't ignore it. Humans can't really ignore questions. It's a weird little thing, something to know about. Gimmick. So this is for this formula, you can use anything: gimmick, hack, shortcut, etc. You're basically promising a silver bullet. Again, you have to be careful with some markets with this, but this can be a powerful one. The writing hack that will force your reader to pay attention to every single word, right? You're promising them a new way to solve a problem more effectively. That's what gimmick or hack or even secret, right? Those are different ways to do it. Sneaky. This one is where you kind of see you sneaky, weird, right? There was that one example of the headlines. The sneaky headline formula that will break your reader's mind and double or even triple your sales, like sneaky, weird, unorthodox, those type of words tend to imply a certain level of novelty and curiosity. Direct benefit. This is where you just kind of slap them in the face with something they really care about or something they're really afraid of. Become the strongest man in your gym in 30 days or less. Boom. Big, bold promise, big, bold, direct benefit. Powerful way to catch attention, right? Specific question. Did you know that 99% of billionaires use the same strategy to make their first real money? Again, I've made these up. Like, these obviously aren't real fascination points. They're not based on anything real. But specific questions usually at the crux of the issue, the crux of the roadblock, or the crux of the thing that they desire, that can usually grab attention. Again, the human brain cannot ignore questions. So here's another one, the if then one. This is a powerful one. You will use this one quite a bit. The example here is, if you are tired of falling flat on your face when talking with that beautiful girl, then you need to learn the 7 questions that will get any girl wildly interested in you. That first part, that if, usually asking a question about something that they desire or something they fear. And in the then section, you then tease the mechanism for getting what they want or avoiding the pain that they're dealing with, right? If then, desire and pain, then specific detail, tease, curiosity, right? When. Now this is kind of a play on the when, the what, or the how. The when is related to times or situations. For example, this one, when eating chocolate will actually boost your fat loss. It's like, hey, there's a situation where this other counterintuitive thing will happen. When is a powerful formula. You probably won't use that one quite as often, but it's there. Quickest, easiest. There's a whole bunch of adjectives that mean kind of the same thing. Quickest, easiest, simplest, most straightforward. Those types of adjectives can amplify curiosity because they imply novelty. They imply something that means superiority, right? So humans are curious about that whenever there's a clear winner. Like, these adjectives usually say that. So if you just tack them onto stuff, it will amplify the curiosity they experience. So the quickest way to boost your confidence and get that millionaire glow, you can say the easiest, the simplest, all that stuff. Those are powerful ones. Truth is a good one. The truth about trading crypto that will ensure you're on the right side of history. It implies that there is an information gap that if you solve, you will get the result that you want, or you will avoid the pain that you're avoiding. Truth, again, secret's kind of a variation of this one. But truth is a powerful formula. Better than is good. So this example, better than caffeine, discover the best legal supplement for greater focus and discipline. This is where you're breaking their expectations again, right? Where they're saying, you take what they think is the best option and you say, hey, there's a new thing that's better than that option. It's not necessarily product-based, but it's more like solution type based. So better than is a cool way to flip their expectations and present them something new. And then single, right? And it's kind of related to the number one, but single is focused. It's like, this is the most important thing. When you say single or the single blank, it adds importance to that thing. It magnifies the size and the importance of the thing you're teasing. So the single step you must take before all of your sales calls to maintain frame and close like the Wolf of Wall Street. The single step, like it magnifies the importance of it. And when you magnify the size of that, the bigger and better it'll catch their attention. And the smaller the information gap seems, the smaller the information gap is in their mind, the smaller the information gap seems in their mind, the easier they think it'll be, or the more their desire is to actually close that gap, right? So those are some good formulas, right? Those are guidelines. You can use some of them. You have to use all of them. Some of them won't fit for your audience. Some of them might feel too cliche. Some of them won't feel strong enough. You'll pick and play with all of them when you sit down to do projects. You'll have to gauge which ones are most appropriate for your audience as you go through it. But anyways, so let's go back over now. In that last call, we talked about the elements, or the last video, we talked about the elements that will enhance curiosity. You want to use these with your fascinations. You can see how they tie into the fascinations to magnify the actual effect of them, right? The first one is specificity, right? It needs to feel real. Whenever you're dropping the fascination, it can't be vague. It has to feel like there actually is something real. And if you give them a glimpse, if you give them part of the answer without giving them the full answer, then they know that there's the rest of the answer has to exist. So specificity is powerful, not out statements where you flip their expectations, where you say it's not this thing, it's another thing. That's a really powerful way to magnify curiosity. Again, borrowed status or mystery. You saw me do that a couple of times. I talk about billionaires, this or that, right? Wolf of Wall Street, right? Borrowed status, borrowed mystery. Those always magnify it. Unexplainable results if something seems counterintuitive or it doesn't mesh with the reality. The more that you can include, the more curious they'll be. And then here's another one. I added this in here for this video, but that's conflict and drama. If humans are drawn to it, if there are two forces that are fighting against each other, there's usually a reason why. There's usually something at stake. We are drawn to drama and conflict. Women especially, but everybody, right? The more conflict or drama you can mix into the elements when you're building fascinations, when you're building curiosity, the more attracted people will be to learning and figuring out what's going on, right? Think about it, like when you're in school and a fight breaks out, everyone runs trying to figure out what's going on. It's human nature to understand and get to the root of conflict, right? Now, fascinations are important, and this is typically like the second big step you'll do on any big project. So the first step is obviously research. You sit down, you understand the avatar, understand their situation, all that good stuff. You map that all out, and then usually what you'll do is just sit down and you will write at least 100 fascinations for you to use during the rest of your project, whether you're writing emails, ads, web pages, funnels, all that stuff. Doesn't matter. You're going to want as many fascinations to draw on as ammunition as possible, right? You're going to want to get really good at these. This is going to be something you're going to do quite a bit of. As you go through your world, as you're on social media or online or reading billboards, take note of interesting fascinations you see, because you'll start to see some that stand out to you. Whenever you see one that works, try and figure it out. Copy it, save it down, and try and figure it out. And you can save it and use it for inspiration while you're sitting down and when you have to come up with fascination in the future. The best copywriters in the world are all masters of this, right? All the top ones, all the great ones they got where they were and they succeeded because they got good at writing fascinations, because it allows them to control curiosity and control attention. Now it's your turn to learn this skill. It's pretty easy. You've got the formulas. You understand how attention and curiosity works. You understand how people work. Once you have this ability, though, you'll be able to control people, right? You'll be able to control attention, which is a superpower. And you have to use it for good. You can't use it for evil. But you can use it to help you and your clients make tons of money, because it is the game. And if you're good at fascinations, you'll be good at that. All right, so we've talked about fascinations. We talked about curiosity. It's time for you. This is the first time you're going to have to sit down and come up with creative ideas and actually write. So it's appropriate that at this point we begin speaking about the creative thinking process, because now it's time for you to generate ideas for the first time, right, inside of this program. And the quality of your thinking will determine the quality of your success as a copywriter and as a person. And the process I'm going to reveal to you is going to help you come up with genius ideas to conquer the world. And I say that only half joking. The process I'm going to show you is going to allow you to come up with ideas that will disrupt entire markets. You can disrupt entire markets by coming up with ideas in this process. This is how you change businesses. This is how you change the world. It's how you change yourself, right? So it's an important process. And to be able to perform it, you need to learn more about how your brain actually functions, like what happens sort of under the hood inside of your own brain, and how the brain works and how to use it to produce the most creative ideas you possibly can. So you need to understand, before we dive into the actual process, there's a fundamental belief or a fundamental understanding you have to have about your brain. And that is that there are really two minds at work inside of your brain, right? There's the subconscious mind, which is the creative part of your mind. It's the workhorse. It's where all your thoughts come from, where all your memories are stored, where all your thinking occurs, your emotions are felt. It's this big giant, it's like the bottom part of the iceberg. You can't see it. You don't really understand how all of it works, but it does amazing things. It remembers all your math facts. It helps you remember your phone number, all that stuff, right? It's this massive, powerful supercomputer, right? And then there is your conscious mind, which is sort of above the subconscious mind. This is the part of your mind that wills and directs, filters, and controls it. It sort of guides this giant subconscious mind and directs it to do things, right? And this is how let me explain the process of how you use your two minds during this creative process, like how you actually have them work together in order to create this wonderful experience, which is creativity and the genesis of ideas. The first thing you do is your conscious mind sort of sets the intention or task for your subconscious mind. You're like, hey, subconscious, we're doing this. This is why you can kind of like ask questions to yourself. It's your conscious mind asking questions to your subconscious mind. You can get an answer back. It's kind of weird if you think about it, right? But the first thing you do in the creative process is your conscious mind, it sets the intention, right? And then your subconscious mind then starts generating thoughts and ideas, right? It starts actually doing the thinking and generation of ideas. And then once it's come up with some ideas, your conscious mind starts filtering out the bad ideas and accepting the winning ideas and say, oh, no, this one's bad. This one's no good. But the subconscious mind is just spitting out ideas. It gets into a flow state and it just starts like ideas start coming out like it's a machine, right? Boom, 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 boom. And the conscious mind is saying, yeah, this one's bad. This one's bad. Oh, this one's good. Oh, this one's bad. Normal filtering process. And here's kind of a cool diagram so you guys understand that a little bit better. So first, like the conscious mind, again, it decides what to do. And then the subconscious mind starts coming up with all these ideas, boom, 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 boom. And then the conscious mind comes back in and it filters it out and it picks the final idea or the final ideas, right? Now, this first part of the process where you're starting to come up with a bunch of different ideas and you're branching out is called divergent thinking, right? You're trying to come up with as many options as possible. And then you enter the process, which is called convergent thinking, is where you start filtering things out and bringing these sort of wild ideas and bringing them back to focus, right? And this is the process. You go through divergent thinking, then convergent thinking, and sort of a process over and over again to come up with good ideas and to filter them out, right? It seems fairly simple, but there's a few parts of the process where it tends to break down, and I'm going to show you how to fix it. So the first one is distraction, right? For your subconscious mind to get in the point where it's like dumping out good ideas, you have to avoid distraction. Distraction will ruin it. You want to get in that flow state, get the momentum going for the ideas. So that you just keep coming up with idea after idea after idea. If you distract it, then you have to start building that momentum all over again. It's why most people don't think very deeply. It's because they never allow themselves to go very long without picking up their phone or diving into some new distraction. So you want to develop your deep work capacity and to stay in that uninterrupted flow for as long as possible, right? Over time, you'll get better and better at it. But the better you get at avoiding distraction, about physically cutting it out of your life and using your mind to focus on one part of the process, the better, right? The other side of the problem is you don't have enough material to work with to start with the creative process. And this is usually a breakdown in the research. If you don't understand the avatar of the situation, you don't have enough of their words, enough understanding about what's going on, and there's any kind of if there's a lack of clarity around any of those core concepts you need to learn about in your research, when you sit down to actually write, if you don't have that, if it's not clear, you're going to run into problems. There's not enough actual material for your brain to use to construct creative ideas or creative fascinations in this example, right? So whenever you run into that problem, run into that roadblock, and you don't know what to do, it's usually a lack of clarity around that information or around the process. You either don't know, you don't have the material for what you need to do, or you don't have the skill for doing that thing, right? And you need to go back and identify where that lack of clarity is. And that's your limiting factor. And once you identify that, you can fix it and then you can move forward. If you realize, hey, I really need to go back to the research and understand more stuff, then you go and do that. Or if you're like, hey, I really need to learn more about these copywriting fascination formulas because I don't know what I'm doing, you go and do that. And then you can show back up and actually step into creative stuff. That's an important step. If you don't have enough ammunition for your subconscious to draw on, the creative process just dies. So you gotta feed it the right ammunition. You got to give it the right knowledge that it needs, and then it can actually do what it needs to do. Now, this is a big one. This is probably the most common one, and that is like the idea of having too harsh of a filter too early on, right? Remember how I said how the conscious mind sort of tells the subconscious mind to start thinking of ideas, and then it'll start evaluating whether those ideas are good or bad, right? Something that happens is when you're sitting down for the first time, you're trying to do it, you're trying to come up with these ideas. Some of the first couple ideas and a lot of the ideas that you're going to come up with are going to be pretty bad, right? So if you're doing something new, you're like, your brain's testing out this new skill and it comes up with an idea and your conscious mind comes down too harsh on it. It's like, oh, that's a terrible idea. That's stupid. And it comes up with another idea and the brain's like, no, that's stupid. Pretty soon the subconscious mind, it's weird. It's like it's another person. It's like, dude, if you're going to keep being a jerk to me, I'm not going to come up with ideas. And it just stops, right? So one of the ways to get around that is to, instead of like smacking it down every time, is to give yourself permission to just let the ideas flow. So you turn off the filter part of your brain and just let the ideas flow. Like you get that momentum going and you want to keep that momentum going as much as possible. For example, like let's say you're going to write fascinations and you were running into this problem. You could give yourself the permission to say, okay, dude, just like write 100 bad fascinations, like the worst fascinations possible. And you just like start spitting up ideas and pretty soon you'll get into that flow state and you'll spit out ideas. And maybe maybe you're you'll come up with two bad ones, and then you come up with a good one, and then another two bad ones and another good one. Like everyone's got a percentage, right? But if you get enough volume out and you give yourself the permission to hit the volume, you'll be able to start mining those responses for gold. Not all of them will be great. Some of them will be good. But if you turn off the filter for a while and then filter the end, it allows you to reach that flow state for your output of creative ideas, and then you can pick the good ones afterwards, right? Instead of shutting it down too early. The other problem is that the brain is overtaxed. If you're doing back-to-back deep work sessions and your brain is like literally, you haven't taken the time to reset in between, you're going to run into problems. It'll just get worn down and you won't be able to come with ideas. The reset and the break in between the actual work part of each deep work session is work. It's crucial. It is extremely important. It's not just something that you're just too weak to not do. You actually need to do that to give your subconscious mind the breather it needs to reset. And you'll be surprised that, and when you do that, like if you've reached that point where you're starting to run into the end of your brain's capacity, if you take a break and get up and go for a walk for 5 minutes, you'd be surprised at how many breakthrough ideas will come to you while you're on that walk, right? There was an example I gave a while back about the illegal sexual stimulant headline as a really good example of a fascination. Gary Halpert came up with that when he was walking on the beach in between writing sessions, right? You need to give yourself a reset every so often to let that creative process come in and actually happen, right? And creativity is a skill, right? If you can develop your ability to think creatively, you learn this process of using your conscious mind to task your subconscious mind and mining it for creative resources and doing divergent thinking, convergent thinking, and avoid the mistakes I've explained. If you develop this skill, you'll be able to come up with crazy ideas, and there won't be a challenge that you face as a copywriter or in your life really that you can't come up with a unique, powerful solution to. Creative thinking is extremely important. You're going to need to develop this skill, especially now as you start writing. It's extremely important.